All right, welcome everybody. So, naturally, I am not looking my best, that's for sure. Uh, I look pale as shit. What the hell
You look
happened here?
pale.
I'm gonna fix some of this. I'm gonna
I
see some
can.
movie magic right here.
Yeah,
Suddenly, I'm
it's
going
the
to
color
develop a
correction.
tan.
Sudden color correction. There you go.
Yep. Oh, now I look red. Oh,
Yeah.
back it off. Back it off.
Not gonna lie, like I do. Was it? Do I do minor color correction?
There we go.
Very minor.
There we
I
go.
don't. I don't do any hue shifting on mine though. By the way, so but you will know the hue shifting when say for example, if I do this, this is hue shifting. Oh my god, this is like going like I'm tripping balls right now. That's what's going on. That's hue shifting. But yeah, I don't do any of that. So there we go.
Yeah.
The au
uh,
naturel.
yeah, we're not pulling the Donald Trump here. You know, we don't need the fake color corrector or anything like that. We just need the proper lighting.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Proper lighting goes a long way, man. I'm just
mhm.
gonna say, like when it comes to live streaming, proper lighting goes a very long way.
Absolutely,
And no,
absolutely.
and I will say that chances are, you know, from what you see, um, the lighting in the room is probably a lot brighter than you initially would think.
Yes,
Yeah, because
yes.
I'm rocking three 100 watts, equivalent 100 watt LED bulbs right now. Two of them are admittedly pointing towards my back wall, back that direction. But that's only to provide a bit of diffused lighting rather than direct lighting. I've got a direct light like literally there, and now I can't see because I look straight at it. Ow. Oh. And you know the issues with direct lighting with your Elgato
Oh yeah.
one that goes
It's like having
insanely
two
bright.
beacons. Like you can see, like for most people, you can see the shadow that gets cast by just putting my hand in front of the light.
Yeah,
Like the lighting in here is so bright that I can cast shadows on myself. And the only reason I'm not completely not illuminated is that there's a light from over here as well.
yeah.
Um, so good times. So if, from chat here, if NWO devs are if New World, keeping in mind that NWO and New World are two very different things.
Yes.
We are not New World devs, although we do talk with them. If NW devs could find a way to take resources and gold out of the game, uh, the way the seasonal events burn through Azoth and the event tokens, New World would have a really different. It would like that would actually be
Yeah,
you know
yeah. They had issues this week with
um,
resources and all that jazz. Like, not gonna lie.
yeah, they do need to clean up Azoth, which we'll talk about is getting fixed in the patch tonight. Uh,
Hmm.
thank God, because that was
Yeah, I may have seen and heard a little bit of, a little bit of angst and fury about all of that. Um, and clearly it's quite close to the to the community's thoughts right now, considering that there was considering Plague's the first one, to really mention it in chat as such, and it's quite early on in the show. So yeah, I understandably plays, but like definitely, yeah, definitely the. I understand there is. You're not the only one. You're not the first one at all, for sure, and you definitely won't be the last one to sort of you know think that. Well, I don't know whether you thought that we're devs or not, but like I don't know, but like we're definitely not devs in any shape or form. We try and discuss the issues with the game with devs when we get the opportunity to, but we're not devs, we don't work for Amazon in any way, shape, or form. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah. The
now
uh,
now that we
the
now
fix
that
to
we'll be able
Azoth is
to
going to be real nice. That's for sure.
yeah now that we'll be able to actually open up Azoth files,
On the other, so the other
it'll be
kicker
really
there is
useful,
being able to
helpful.
upgrade the tokens for the
Yeah,
event
that's also the
from the
thing.
standard tokens to the like 25. Like you can convert them 25 standard tokens to a premium token with the Vial of Azoth. Like that's gonna come in real nice for me. Like because I've got like 400 some event tokens already.
It really depends on how much Azoth you use. Like, I mean, for example, if you just if you've got like a bit of a day kind of planned out typically in order for you doing various different dailies and all that kind of stuff, then you probably have your like Azoth usage versus Azoth like generation kind of down to a pretty good kind of consistent and renewable kind of way. But like if you manufacture something, if you're crafting things all the time, um, yeah, we definitely are thick, man. With three C's, if anything. Um, but
I actually really like the
but
Guitar Hero style
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Like
But
I
but
think
yeah,
that the
like
times two multiplier on the experience needs to basically just be permanent, and whatever
yeah,
it's
but
currently set at the times two rate of progression needs to be at least the rate of progression for normal. Otherwise, no one's ever going to hit 200.
well, never
But
say never, man. Like you have people who are exceptional at grinding in these sorts of games. But as was being said with the Azoth, I think if you use a lot more Azoth than most people, like for example, if you are a crafter, then chances are you are very, very much feeling the issues regarding not being able to open Azoth vials at the moment.
uh, reminder to be civil in chat.
Yeah, very much so, please, guys.
We're all friends here, so
Opinions are not fact.
yep. So the we have some interesting topics for this pre-show. There's a
A
kind of
few things, kind of some confusing stuff.
this. So some of this is follow up from prior weeks where like we talked about you we talked about, for instance, like the use of mouse jigglers for remote work. Um,
Oh yes. Oh
I
yeah,
thought
yeah,
that was
yeah.
kind of an interesting one, and there's an article that I ran into actually today that talks about a manager catching a remote worker with the mouse jiggler, um, and you know they were put on a performance improvement plan or a PIP, which is not uncommon for kind of these you know uh,
hmm
kind of like any kind of corporate job, you can be put on a PIP for just about anything. But instead of for performance reasons, they were put on there because they were using a mouse jiggler, despite the fact that they were getting all of their work done. So, like, this is the
it's just
definition of
ridiculous.
stupid, because it's like if you expect the individual to get all of their work done, they get all of their work done, and then you turn around and complain that they're using a device to keep themselves logged uh, in the downtime in between tasks that you're giving them. You know,
Just so they just so you don't just so they don't get fucking berated and complained
yeah.
by middle management. It's like
So it kind of becomes this like,
I don't get it.
you're complaining because you're not giving them enough work that they have time that they can spend, you know, basically just trying to keep their computer running.
I would just if I was a worker getting that kind of harassment from mid management or whatever, like I would just be like, sorry, did you not put out did you not put out a work placement that was based around tasks or did you interview me with no placement whatsoever and then put me into something based on what you thought my aptitude was? Because I believe it was the former.
Mhm.
You know, and if that's the case, I'm finishing the tasks. I'm doing all the tasks that's required of me that you want me to do. You know, if you would like to discuss with me the possibility of me putting more effort into into what I do for you on a day-to-day basis, then we can discuss that vis-a-vis an increase in my pay.
Yeah.
But
Or like,
other than that,
if an employer is made aware, like as a supervisor myself, is if I'm made aware that an employee has extra time in their day, there are two choices that I have. I can give them more work, assuming that
mhm,
I'm providing a balanced workload, balanced expectations across staff of similar pay and similar position types. And I have the other option of not giving them more work. And there are strategic reasons to do that. For instance, if I work in emergency management, so the season that we are currently entered into is hurricane season. So
yeah,
burning my staff out in the beginning of summer is a fucking terrible idea when I know that they're going to be put into situations where they're going to be working 12-hour days consistently with no real time off. Um, when we hit, the meaty parts of hurricane season. So
mm,
I'm not afraid of saying, hey, take it easy now. Here's where you get your work-life balance. And I'm still expecting things to be accomplished. I'm still expecting things to be, you know, uh, like shit still has to get done. But I know that if I task too much out of you now, that you're going to be overworked and you might quit at the end of hurricane season. And I would rather keep you as a staff than have you burn out.
yeah,
Um, so like that's an aspect of this. Now there are situations where individuals are down to 20, 30 minutes of actual work a day, where the reality is you just need to give them more work.
yeah.
And
I
accept the fact that they've automated some things, which we talked about in the last pre-show. Like the reality is,
mhm,
like I work in automated data, so much of the stuff that I do, if everything is going right, doesn't look like anything's happening. You know,
yeah,
uh, and it's similar to like IT. If you run as a network administrator, you will have days where you do nothing because you have accomplished everything that you need to. The network is running as per normal, and there are no adverse events happening. Like,
yeah,
but you have to be there. You have to be vigilant. You have to be watching. Like, shit can break at
mhm,
any moment. Um, so it's kind of this interesting situation of you want people to create advancements in their position by automating processes, but the supervisors need to understand that automating those processes is both for the employee's benefit and for the work the office's benefit. So upon
mhm,
completion of automating those processes, they need to build in time to maintain those systems. However, they may build in additional time as well that they've now freed up. So instead of, let's take a TPS report. A TPS report uh, is what it is. Like, you got to do this report every week. It's going to take you 8 hours on a Friday, uh, and it sucks. You automate the system to generate this TPS report in a single click.
mhm,
So now every Friday, instead of working for 8 hours, you work for 5 minutes, validating that everything went out right and that the report is what it's supposed to be, which is great.
mhm,
Now, from a manager's perspective, I need to reward the fact that you have now cut off 7 hours and 55 minutes of your time that would have been doing something else. And I need to reward that in not necessarily giving you 7 hours and 55 minutes worth of more work, but I need to understand that that process also has issues that could break it. So data might not come in the way that it's expected and might cause, several hours worth of revamping to fix it.
Yeah, and debugging and stuff. Yeah.
But if I give you an additional 4 hours worth of work, leaving you the time to ensure that there's something there, that's still a balanced system. You know, uh, and I'm still rewarding you with additional time on most weeks when it doesn't break. That it'll be functional, running, and you'll be able to have a pretty cakewalk of a day. Now, the thing that, going back to this article, and fundamentally the thing that pisses me off to no end, is this idea of the green dot. So on Teams, you
what
get
it
this green
is.
dot by being active on your computer, and it turns yellow within 5 minutes. So if you don't touch your keyboard or mouse, the dot turns yellow and it says you are away. And there are supervisors out there who do not understand that you could be going to the bathroom, you could be sitting there on your phone, you could be, doing any number of other things that are work related.
Yeah.
I could be writing, I have a whiteboard that I will never show because it has a bunch of work related stuff on it, off to my side here. And it is packed, and I will stand up and I will write on my whiteboard and plan out all kinds of different stuff on it. That could take me an hour staring at this whiteboard trying to solve a complex problem. And to my computer, I am still attentive. I am still there. I am still responsive of incoming messages and emails. However, I am not actively moving my mouse around. So it might show that I'm away, but even my supervisors know that if I'm marked away, I'm still, at bare minimum, I have my work phone on me, and I will be responsive to whatever is asked of me within a couple of minutes. To the point where they will message me on lunch, and I'll be like, "Hey, I'm out on lunch, but here's this thing." They'll be like, "You could have just waited until after lunch."
Yeah, it's literally just it's paranoid middle managements like that are concerned. I feel like it's just I feel like it's mid managements that are just like paranoid about like the work from home crowd that are allowed to stay working from home when they're at the office.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's a mixture of um like their kind of power play and jealousy, I think, to some degree. I genuinely
Yeah.
think that's the case.
I think there's elements of jealousy. I think there's elements of just not understanding. So like there's the cultural difference between, we'll call it the millennials, Gen Z, and the baby boomers. Because functionally speaking, millennials have embraced the work from home. Like, if anything, like we are like wholesale bought into, I'm willing to work from home because I know I can do it. I'm tech savvy enough to do it. Then you have these baby boomers who just have, and I'm not saying the entire group of them have not done this, but like there is a large portion of them, and I've worked with many of them who do not have the technical skills required to work from home. For instance, very recently, I was tasked to work with somebody who does not understand how to work with Microsoft Office products.
Oof.
And I was like, and we're not talking like advanced stuff. Like I do advanced shit in Excel. Like like I'm not saying you need to know like Visual Basic programming in Excel, but being able to add two cells together is like basic functionality for Excel.
Yeah,
or
we're not asking people to fucking put in concatenate fucking stuff into cells. Like it's just simple basic arithmetic and like some kind of basic basic numeracy and that kind of stuff in cells, and it's fine. And like putting a graph together, maybe going so far as putting together a table that you can develop, that you can, create a graph. But like, who, like, you should be able to do that. Like, Jesus Christ,
Yeah,
it's not hard.
and it's actually kind of scary. Like, how have you made it to this point? How have you made it to 2022
Yeah, yeah,
without
yeah.
learning like basic stuff?
And the
You
other
know,
the other thing is like, for like
for an office
generations,
job too.
yeah, and I would say like, from a generational kind of side of things. Cheers, Plagues, for that sub, by the way, much appreciated. Um, from a like a generational sort of standpoint, I know that like at least my generation, sort of like the millennial sort of generation. I'm a very early very early sort of millennial as such, but like at least from the millennial kind of generation onwards, like we have pretty much embraced the like we can very much easily embrace the work from home life. But even beyond that, like
Yeah, the remote
there is
work.
definitely the remote work or the
Yeah,
working on the go like kind of life.
like even
I
like the van
was
lifestyle. Like
yeah.
people have started building, and I see these a lot now.
Well,
They're
I
more and
wouldn't
more of them in DC now that the rent is through the fucking roof. Is that people will buy these like RVs and
but
they'll
I wouldn't
plat
say
the
just
top
that.
of them in
Like,
solar panels and set up a
yeah,
home office inside. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not really kind of talking about that reform in that kind of form, but like more in terms of like, mobile phones, sim phones, that kind of like,
mhm,
smartphones, that kind of stuff. Like, have come on leaps and bounds, and
mhm.
like especially if you have enough money to sort of to shell out for like some of the larger phones, like you can do work on those. Like, I mean, I'm not even gonna lie, like I don't exactly have an amazing iPhone, but like I have seen this specific iPhone actually, when you connect it up correctly to certain peripherals, like I can do stuff on this that my actual like my former um desktop PC couldn't do. I can edit 4K video on a video, on like a video editing software on this phone itself, just with some peripherals, and that's it. Like, you know,
Mhm.
the stuff that you can do on mobile phones, like smartphones these days, is ridiculous. And if you have the sort of the screen real estate for some of the larger phones, you can do a lot of work literally on the go. You don't need like a van or anything like that. Like, I'm
Oh
talking
yeah,
literally on the go.
oh yeah. You can like, and I mean like the number of things. Like I'll walk down the road to a deli. Like I live like literally a block from an Italian deli. It's wonderful.
Mm,
Um, walk down the road, I'll answer my phone and be able to send documents, be able to forward emails, be able to shit. I've proofread documents while sitting there at lunch. You know,
yeah.
uh, like it's easy enough to do that you can just do that on your phone. It's not a requirement anymore to be sitting at your desk, which I think goes back to this kind of like old school mentality from people who are um, you
Like you
in a
have
lot of
to
these higher level management roles,
yeah.
is that if I can't see you working, you're not working. And
Yeah.
it's like that's just not the case. Like if you're
No.
going to hire me for my salary, I'm not going to say what I make, but like I make a good amount of money, you better trust me, because if you don't, then like yeah, it's a
Yeah.
terrible recipe. You need to
It
trust your
is.
staff to be working. Now, there are people who will take advantage of that, sure. But
Mm-hmm.
there are also people who are going to work faster than the rest of them. And they should be rewarded for their fast pace, not by giving them necessarily more work, but by giving them more flexibility. And this is why, like, I'm more than a champion of the less than 40-hour work week. You know, I actually really like Google's model, where it's you are required to come in however many hours it takes you to complete your job per week. You know, and if you can complete your job in An hour? Good for you. Go home. Go deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Go deal with shit other days. Be responsive to emails and stuff like that. But otherwise, you're free to go. You know, because like if everything's kind of just going, then you know there's no sense in making you sit there for 40 hours. And anybody who's ever worked in an office, this is the other side of things. Anybody who's ever worked in an office, there are so many more distractions. Oh, I'm going to go stand and chat with this person about motorcycles, or I'm going to go stand and chat with this person about X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm going to go check out. I'm going to go talk to this other division to go, to go catch up on, whatever work related thing. But then you stand down there talking to them for a half hour, and you end up scheduling lunch. Like those are all things that happen in the office, and there are things that are good about that, where like the networking in the office, I will concede, is better than remote work, because the casual drop by of, oh hey, I remember you exist, like I see you, I can understand you're here, I know what you do, like and I have the opportunity to get to know you through this passive kind of interaction ability where I can just drop in, is not the same as over Teams. Which I totally understand that. But for people who are mid-career, that are already known in the office that they work in, I see zero issue with teleworking or remote working 100% of the time, provided that they are good with sacrificing that, because that is in essence work-life balance on the employee's side. And I think from an employer's side, the challenge to that is that if the individual does not meet expectations, then you start reeling back on the remote work.
Yeah, exactly. That should be how it should be, not based around like fucking little activity monitoring, like color cues. Like,
if you feel as a supervisor, if you feel that you need to implement some kind of tracking software to identify how often people are actually working on their computer, you are a terrible boss.
Yeah, you need to like get up and fucking walk around for a while, because like, yeah, you are too highly strung at this point in time. And
you need to develop trust in your staff, and if you don't trust them, you don't trust them for some reason. Find what that reason is and see if you can develop trust. If it's a matter of you don't trust them because they're not working, then are they not achieving the expectations, or are you not setting expectations clearly with them? Like, there's a bunch of questions from a leadership role you should be asking before asking, is this person constantly moving their mouse every 5 minutes?
You also be very aware that it could be something that you need to be introspective about. Like, you need to make sure that this isn't something that you're projecting to them, when in actual fact it might be an issue with yourself.
Yep, absolutely. So because I always like these topics because they're they dig into they dig into this idea of, like, one, not every employee is the same as other employees. No. I've been told by supervisors that I work at a pace that is uncomfortable for the people around me because I get everything done very quickly. For instance, I got sent a glossary of terms, and they were like, "Hey, can you alphabetize this?" Well, if you know anything about Word, you can do that in about 5 seconds. Like, it's literally like command keys and you're good to go. Like, so like they send it to me, I email them back, and they thought it was me emailing them back that I was accepting the task.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was already done, and they were like, we thought that was gonna, like, it was 700 plus terms. So like, they were like, we thought this was gonna take you all day. And I went, nope.
No. Nope.
And they're like, how did you do this? And it's like, you guys need to learn, Microsoft Office, like, because there is the level of like Microsoft Office that is like, I can type, I can, I understand how autocorrect works, like the basics. And then there's the power user stuff. And then there's, beyond that, there's the expert user. So like, people in Excel, the beginning user can put numbers into a cell. The power user can put advanced formulas into cells.
Yeah.
The expert is building Visual Basic programs behind the scenes to run based on inputs and and all of that. Like there is an entirely different level of skill required at all three of those. And the problem is that people will apply for jobs and say, "Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm an expert in Excel. I know a ton about Excel. I use it all the time." And they use it for like their home budget where they're just entering numbers in and nothing is being added together. Like they think that's the expert because they don't know that there's other things it does. The problem is when you get an actual expert, they will sit there and say, "I know a lot about Excel." Like for me, I know a lot about Excel, but I also know that there was a vast amount of shit that I don't know about Excel.
Yeah.
And that I wouldn't qualify myself as an expert because I know that there are people out there who have infinitely higher skill levels in Excel that don't match with mine, even though mine is still in that top 5% of total users. And like it's people don't understand that, and oftentimes it doesn't come through well on like job applications where people are like, "Oh yeah, I can totally use this program." It's like, can you or can you? Like,
It's like if they it's one of those classic kind of things of especially when it's Excel, right? It's that classic case of if they ask you a question whether you can do something, you just say yes, right? Can you speak multiple languages? Yes. Can you ride a horse? Yes. Do you do your own stunts? Yes. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, it's just
so true.
The worst thing is when, if you've decided to go down that route when it comes to interviews, like at some point someone's going to ask you to prove this. And if you can't, you're fucked.
So with that, we got a whole bunch of other kind of interesting topics to cover here. We've got two science-related topics that we'll hit up before we start talking some gaming stuff here. So the first is that the days are actually getting shorter. It has been measured. The days are actually shorter than they used to be.
I'm blaming this on wind farms. Like you see it, they are literally spinning the earth faster. You look at them, and what else could they be doing?
Yeah.
What else could they be doing, Ace?
So the UK's National Physics Library showed that the Earth is spinning faster than it was half a century ago. On June 29th, the Earth's full rotation took 1.59 milliseconds less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
This is the shortest day ever recorded. Now, what's even more interesting is that scientists have zero explanation of why this happened. There is no known effect of why this would occur.
The thing is, science doesn't know everything, and scientists know that they don't know everything, because if they did know everything, they would just stop. Okay, like, but science is an ever evolving thing. It's something that is consistent, like constant. Like there was always things that scientists don't know.
So some of the interesting impacts of this, a negative leap second, which is basically what would be subtracted as a difference here, would mean that our clocks skip 1 second which would potentially create problems for systems like IT that are time based and have a known clock speed. So it's very challenging to sit there and say time is shorter than it used to be, and computers are not equipped to really understand that all that well. This is
No,
very reminiscent of Y2K, uh, and
I
I'm
would love.
aging myself by saying that.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
Well, yeah, by at least 22 years plus, however many years it needs to understand Y2K, what Y2K is. But yeah,
um, so the impact of a negative leap second has never been tested on a large scale, and it could have a devastating effect on software relying on timers or schedulers.
oh god,
Um,
planes are gonna fall out the sky.
well, here's the thing: like, it depends on when it happens. Like subtracting a second from time in order to keep up with an appropriate 24-hour day. Um, you know,
It's just going to be it's literally just going to be a glitch in the matrix. That's all it's going to be. It's going to go like 11:58, 11:59, 11:59, 12. That's all it's going to be. That's going to be the massive thing.
um,
So this reminds me of something. This reminds me of actually a YouTube video that I saw. If you've ever heard of a person called Tom Scott
I have
at
not.
all. He is a UK YouTuber who basically does videos of interesting things in an interesting way. And there's a video that he did for another, I think for a channel that he runs in some way, shape, or form. That's not his regular channel as such. But he's talking about the problem with time and time zones, and the problem with time zones, and how those have evolved, how those have changed, going through the ages, especially when it comes to sort of trying to figure out and determine what time it was, back, like say if you went back, 60,000 days from now, what date would that be? You know, and there's all sorts of issues, all sorts of problems with kind of dealing with that. And it's amazing, because he kind of he very much kind of showcases the issues from a sort of a like what would be a regular sort of day-to-day sort of thing that you may think, I can just I'll just build this very quickly, and or like code this very quickly, and then you have so many issues that you run into regarding dates and times, and this negative leap second that is mentioned in the article that you saw this in, is a classic one in with regards to this, that basically it's such a funny video. I'll link it in chat actually, because
Oh yeah.
it's definitely worth a look.
So in other news, we also have a new image from the James Webb Telescope
Yeah.
that is reportedly capturing a supernova.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know exactly what to look for in here, but oh yeah. So this little dot here, and then you can see it. Basically, it disappears. So yeah,
Yeah.
kind of a cool thing to see in space. Relatively rare.
Oh yeah, when being able to spot it like that quickly,
Oh yeah.
definitely.
Um,
But this is one of the cool things about the James Webb Space Telescope, is it's doing a lot of really unique things.
yes. Um, so in some gaming news, because I know that's what you guys are actually here for. Um, Blizzard and NetEase. For those that don't know
Oh
what
God.
NetEase is basically like the Chinese government
What is it? Is this
reincarnated
is
as
this is this
a
a
game studio.
is I just want to sort of like quickly, is this article or is this kind of thing basically sort of like a when Sauron meets Saruman kind of scenario? Like,
No, because those two agreed on some things. These two didn't.
oh right,
Uh,
oh Jesus, okay.
So Blizzard and NetEase have officially scrapped a mobile World of Warcraft game after a financing dispute. The game has reportedly been in
Oh,
development for 3 years.
of course,
It was supposed to be an MMO.
yeah,
It had
the
more than
the
100 staff working on it. Looking over at CCP Games here at EVE Online, they had more people working on a mobile game than you had on your MMO for 5 years. Like, get your shit together. And the challenge here is, of course, over money. The two companies decided, okay, this isn't.
You know what? When you said the issue is with regards to money, it made perfect sense because like, holy crap, are both of these two companies just in it for money? Because
yes,
yeah.
yes. So the challenge here is, of course, that they're having a dispute here. Obviously, it canceled the game. It was not a publicly announced game, but yes. Even I would like to note that even though Blizzard's income is vastly more than CCP's income, being able to throw 100+ developers at a mobile game, with the excess money from your other games, and still support those other games in a meaningful way, providing content and all of that, is impressive.
Oh yeah.
Because God knows CCP can't do that. When we talk about Star Citizen later, I'm going to talk about EVE Online again because the roadmap roundup came up for Star Citizen for like what's being added to 3.18, and guess what? It's more content than EVE Online has received in 2 years.
Wow. Okay.
That's after having a content-rich patch to begin with for 3.17.2.
We'll get
and
to
3.17 and 3.16 and 3.15 and all of these things that have happened in like if you go back 2 years and look at what's developed for Star Citizen and what's developed for EVE Online, you will look at Star Citizen and go, holy shit, one of these, like, Star Citizen versus EVE Online in terms of your money actually going to developing the game you're paying for, one of them actually looks more like a scam than the other, and it's not the one that people would think.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So Place in chat was saying like Star Citizen, the pyramid scheme of MMOs. I was going to say no, it's not really, to be honest. But then I remembered that there is a referral bonus, and you, depending on how many people sign up, you get certain bonuses and stuff like that. So that kind of feels a bit pyramid scheming, not gonna lie, but yeah. It's nowhere near as pyramid scheme as a lot of things. So
now that said, if you would like to use our referral code for Star Citizen, please feel free. But realistically, it just gets us like additional ships and stuff like that. And it takes a comical amount of people to actually sign up in order to get those unlocks. So,
exactly.
So yeah. Now on another topic, this
one does give you stuff as well. So
this one was brought to me a long time ago as a game that was going to kill New World because it was going to be so much better. It was full loot PvP. It was the game to beat all games. It was going to be the Rust killer. It was going to be the survival game that we deserved. I am, of course, talking about the game that has since actually died. When I say actually died, I don't mean this in the meme kind of way. I mean this in the servers were shut the fuck down. like the game was over.
Yeah.
I am talking about Lost Oasis. Now, Lost Oasis recently came out with a developer interview where they are redeveloping the game. And the developer admits their MMO, quote, sucks.
I will say this: they had a unique idea in Last Oasis where it was, you had to shift about because there was, the if you didn't shift about, you get caught in this, in this wall of flame that basically ended up fucking killing you. So you had to be mobile all the time, right? And that's the reason why the bases were mobile. That's the reason why certain, why the art style was a certain way and all that kind of jazz. Like it reminded me of Chronicles of Riddick. You remember that? And they had
Yep.
they had, oh god, what was the planet called? Um, there was there was basically a planet there which kind of had the same sort of style of thing, where essentially the sunrise was essentially a wall of fire that you had to escape. Either you had to go underground or you had to just basically fucking run for your life. Um, and it was a unique asset. It was a unique spin on the survival game franchise, right? And I thought that was cool. But
Mhm.
it appears that they've decided that that wasn't cool enough
Yeah.
or
Now,
hot enough, I
when
guess.
in their words, when I say it sucks, I mean I'm not having fun for long when playing it. Not as long as
Mm,
other survival games that I actually enjoy, wrote the developer. Um,
mm,
we could argue back and forth on why Lost Oasis is objectively not fun and what needs to be changed to make it a great experience. We did actually for 4 seasons to be precise, and while each season got rid of tons of problems, there was always that one fundamental issue remaining. I personally am not having fun when playing Lost Oasis for long. That is the developer speaking. Now,
damn.
as a change to this, they realized that the game realistically had no challenge unless you ran into other players. And they realized that
Yeah.
PvE really is the answer to this. However, they've also realized that one of the biggest contributors to losing player base was the always on PvP and full loot mechanics.
What was the chances of that? Like, I mean, I think if anything is the issue with that, I think is the full loop PvP aspect of
Yes.
that. Like from an economic standpoint, like you should never have full loop PvP, and the reason why is something that I think also kind of plagues New World to some degree is you need to have loss in the system somewhere. Um, you know, New World kind of tackles this in a sense where they don't force loss in any way, shape, or form, but they basically they incentivize loss by you salvaging like equipment, salvaging stuff, and that's how loss happens, and that's how item loss happens in the game. If you have full loop PvP and always on PvP, then things that people drop when they die stay in the system. Um, I'm not entirely certain how Last Oasis kind of dealt with stuff that wasn't picked up. I would imagine that eventually it gets basically sort of removed from the system or from the game kind of thing. But like you know, one of the reasons why Eve Online has lasted for as long as it did is because it's never had full loop PvP. There's always been, when a ship dies in combat or whatever, like you always have that scenario of the ship dies, but everything inside of the ship has like basically a percentage RNG chance of either surviving and being in the wreck or dying and being removed from the game, and that is something that needs to be inside in any game that has a long has aspirations of long-term persistence.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think I think that they've identified the real kicker here is of course full loop PvP. Like dropping everything, losing all of your progression, uh, losing losing all of that, and basically having to rebuild from scratch is one of the biggest challenges. On top of that, they identified with what New World also identified is that PvE is something that has like every player does, every player expects, and one of the realities here is that although some players, admittedly fewer than most people would believe, only enjoy PvP, most players enjoy PvP and PvE, and the vast majority of players enjoy PvE with no PvP elements. Like there was a balance to be crafted there, and as a response to the changes that they're going to be put into the game, they're going to create zones that are PvP focused, that you will opt in to PvP by entering those areas, and there will be areas in the game as well that are PvE only, breaking away from one of the core tenets of their game, and really developing a very very different game than what they originally released. I see this as an absolute win for them because they're identifying something that had to happen. You know, it's unfortunate, but the reality is that it just is what it is. So I thought this article was particularly kind of interesting. You know, they, it's a developer looking at a game that frankly was basically dead on arrival. And before I like eviscerate them too much, I'm going to pull up Lost Oasis.
Okay.
And let's show this. So you can tell recently they've had kind of a little resurgence in player base when they basically turned some of the servers back on for some initial testing phases. But they've realized that there's still, hundreds of people involved in many months, and this goes, even on major releases for them, it was 2,400, 4,400, 4,400. At release, they had terrible server problems at release, which didn't help. But 33,000 at peak, and people thought New World's die off was intense. Like this isn't even enough people to keep one server of New World busy, or even functioning. Like, so, like this is something to note when we talk about games that are actually dead. Lost Oasis is one of them. That said, it may come back. Like, the ability for them to, I have no control over the commercials, but I'll have to check that one out. It may come back, and this is the same when we talk about New World. And this is going to be part of our discussion about New World here later as well. Is obviously like the bump in player count for the new release was pretty nice, but like you can see, like over time, the player base has kind of dwindled, and then recently it's popped right back up, or a little bit. You know, uh, so you can see, beginning of June starts going down, new release. All of a sudden, you start putting up some decent numbers again. You know, and that's
Yeah.
important to see because it speaks to that. But I think what most people forget is that like this peak looks the same for just about every game. And I know I've said this 1,000 times, but it's almost always the same. There are very few exceptions because there are games that are like kind of accepted into the zeitgeist, and just kind of kind of a thing. So like Apex Legends, for example, is a perfect example of a game that did not have an exemplary launch. You know, so like goes on Twitch numbers, uh, and if you equated Twitch numbers with viewer or with actual players, launch went well, and then it fucking dove, came back a little bit, dove, hovered low, and has been building over time. And this is what we hope New World does. Where
Yeah.
actually this is the actual release of the game, November 5th. It was an alpha before that, but that's
Open, kind of open alpha, right? Something.
yeah. So like this is not an overly successful launch, but what this does show is a clear build and clear trend there. And if you look at like even like really popular games, uh, go Valheim. That one was super popular last year.
Yeah.
You know, huge success, and then wanes off, wanes off. Cuts down, and is now the current people in game. It's now about the same size as New World. You know, like it's one of these things where like most people don't understand that this spike happens in every release, and it should not be expected for all of those players to stay. And I realize that that's not an MMO, but let's look at Lost Ark. Fucking spell it right. You Lost Ark is an MMO, and I'm using Lost Ark because it's got actual tracking on it. So let's look at it. Game comes out, nice peak, starts diminishing player base, the return and resurgence of massive botting problems, bot bans, and a return to kind of a normal stable. So this is without the amount of bots that were obviously added here. You can see where the trend line would have gone, and it was equaling out in the ballpark of the 250 to 300,000 range. So like that's to be expected. It was never going to stay at 1.3 million concurrent users. That just doesn't happen anymore. There are some games that break this mold. Counter-Strike. For some reason, Counter-Strike has broken this mold, and I mean, even on its release, was not an overly popular game on Steam. But over time, it has built an audience that has consistently played it day in, day out. And I think that that's kind of a cool thing to see. You look at I'm not going to use Dota because it isn't fully tracked on Steam.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of titles that are have a lifetime that is much longer than the Steam charts go back to. So
yeah. So like you look at PUBG. PUBG was obviously in development for quite a while prior to, and became this super popular game because it was a low cost looter shooter, like kind of it was one of the kind of the first
it
real
was
battle royale
it was the battle royale that people fixated on.
Yeah. But
At
even
the
then,
prime of battle royales,
it hits launch, and it has diminished ever since. And you don't see people out there going, "Oh, PUBG's dead. It's lost. Uh,
it's
it's lost
lost.
95% of its player base."
Yeah,
It's like it has, but
then
like, who
again,
cares? It's still 300,000 people playing.
Yeah, exactly. But then again, 10% of like 3.2 million is still quite a lot.
Yeah.
Even if
So
it's less than that.
like, it's one of
Yeah.
those things where it's like, if you look at the charts out of context, they don't tell you what you think you're getting from them.
Yeah.
You have to see them in context with the understanding of what else is happening. Like,
and what the general trend of how player numbers of the curve of player numbers, how that happens, how that plays out, just with every single title.
yeah. Now this is Destiny 2, which is notorious for large releases. So you can see every time they give a bump like this, you're probably getting some sort of major release that's bringing a bunch of people back to play the game again, find out what's new, and then diminishes off to their normal concurrent player base. But again, at launch, it's still lost. Sorry, let's find the all-time peak and players right now. It's still lost a majority of its players.
Yeah.
Like, but they're not really gone because people can come back to it at any time.
Is Destiny a Steam only, or is it just partially on Steam?
I don't know for sure,
I'm sure it
but
must
I
be
think
partially
it might
on
be.
Steam. Our Crown will be able to tell us for sure, but like, I'm looking at those numbers. I'm thinking
Might be
like,
through the Windows.
It must be.
Used to be on Battle.net.
Yeah, that'd be why.
Wonder if it's still on Battle.net. So, but still, these charts are going to showcase the percentage of population using Steam across any game is going to be rather consistent. It may not showcase the all-time peaks correctly, but it will showcase the appropriate percentage in terms of if 10% of the player base uses Steam, 10% of the player base will generally always use Steam. Yeah. So, the proportional change will be the same across the player base. So,
well, Crown says it is multi-platform, so it is, Xbox Game Pass as well. So, yeah,
well, that's a topic we can hit on a little bit. But we're gonna start the show first. So
it is 5 minutes past. Yeah.
Yep. We're gonna run the intro video, and we'll see you guys on the other side for the actual show. And let's kick into that. All right, welcome to the NWO show. Something's broken. Things are just busted. Yep, there we go. That's better. Welcome to the NWO show. I want to say hi to everybody. It's a good time. It's our normal Wednesday show. It's kind of off to the races for all kinds of things. We have some New World news, we have some Lost Ark news, and we have some Star Citizen news. Um, and as always,
Mhm.
if you're interested in Star Citizen, because they have a referral code, it is in the bottom corner of your screen. Feel free to use that. It starts you out with a little bit more money, um, or in-game money, I should say. Um, and yeah, right. Got a giant dog who's taking up the spot that my chair should be in. There we go. All right. So, also trying to
Yes.
strategically cover. So, uh,
Mhm.
we have kind of an interesting show for you guys this week. It is going to be uh, it's going to be an interesting one. Of course, last week.
Uh,
What's that?
yes. Hmm?
What's that?
Oh no, I was gonna say yeah that there's been some stuff going on this week, but like we had some like I think some releases and some release announcements like last week that you know were fairly significant. So yeah,
Yes,
um, even
very
though they
much
weren't
so.
actually released at that particular point in time, we covered we like for example we essentially we covered a lot of what was going on with them with a medley fair release and also 317 .2 patch from Star Citizen. But yeah, um yeah, there's been a few other interesting kind of things happening in around the in around like Lost Ark, uh Star Citizen and New World, that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's some interesting stuff to talk about for sure. And we definitely want to hear your side, what your opinions are as well, like in chat. So definitely let us know about that. But I guess we should probably, if we're discussing last week, we should probably
Yes,
talk about what was actually covered last week, right?
yes. So what did we cover last week so that we can best understand where we were, so that we can talk from that perspective.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Last week we had AGS drop the patch notes for the Summer Medley Fair update, and although we could have gone through the whole list, which was extensive, we decided to only go through the features and changes we considered to be most noteworthy, as the patch notes were pretty crazy. And of course, we have for the last month been covering um, all of the
The
PTR
PTR, right?
changes anyways, so there was
Yeah.
really no reason for us to go through and discuss changes that we'd been discussing for the last month, even though they were coming in kind of bulk. We did kind of hit the high notes. um, AGS also put out an article spotlighting some positive feedback from community regarding the update, as it stood from the PTR, and some tweets showcasing the new mechanics behind the musical instruments. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Last week, we also saw the final version patch on the PTR as a check on the patch's validity before going live. It was kind of a head fake that we thought we weren't going to get the release, and then all of a sudden we did, which was great to see because, of course, that led to a pretty awesome weekend. Let's see.
There's been some issues though,
There has been some
and
issues.
I
It wasn't
and I
100% in
think
the clear, but I think
uh,
it's been widely successful.
yeah.
Um,
At least from a number standpoint, it seems as though it's been fairly successful. So that's good.
yes. There was both
We'll dive into that
positivity
though.
and a bunch of negativity on the actions taken by AGS last week when merging servers to ramp up player density. Some regions dropping to a single server, which caused some issues for some who saw this as voiding their options to move away from toxicity or other reasons to move between servers in heavily populated areas. And the calls continue to AGS to do something to address the issues that plague the territory system and deal with shell companies that limit strategic PvP gameplay to just a fraction of players in each server. Uh, you know, I can say that it does feel a lot better to have more people on the server. Like the world tours are so much more fun when there's a crazy amount of people there. Uh, Being able to play the music has been just wonderful. Like I've highly enjoyed that.
I feel
Um,
like it gives a much more kind of enriched feeling of like the environment being full of people, right? When you're sort of running around and you're hearing all sorts of different kind of music playing in various different areas,
mhm.
right?
Um,
But yeah,
So from there, we also talked about Lost Ark. Lost Ark.
yeah,
The news was a little bit light, as last week consisted of mainly bug fixes and a couple of changes to the Punica Pass functions regarding gold in an effort to alleviate bad actors from leveraging it to take advantage of how it related to gold generation. The Fever Time events have just started, one last weekend and another this weekend, um, which should keep those needing a boost in player progression kind of progressing along here. Players got a free jukebox song, meaning meant to commemorate the worldwide release of Lost Ark, but were unable in Western clients due to the jukebox being restricted versus the Korean and Russian game client versions. This update also saw the Emperor gem for the Arcanus to be included, which there are some new options for all grinding the Arcanist class up now. So like lot of good stuff for Lost Ark last week as well. Star Citizen, the much anticipated 3.17.2 patch released, had finally been announced. At least it had not released at the time of our show, but it was in final stages to be released. Um,
yeah. They had a
so
date. They didn't say a time. They just said like,
yes,
at some point today or some point tomorrow.
and I believe
And it's
they
like,
finally pushed that patch at like 9 o'clock at night. Uh,
yeah, they've been working on it for a while.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm realizing that I'm in the wrong.
Oh, we're
Fix
in the
our
wrong
category.
thingy. Oh, okay, that's
There we
fair
go.
enough.
Um,
We're still doing the kind of like the roundup
yes.
of last week anyway, so it's all good.
Some
Um,
some of the impressive things to note in the Star Citizen category is that they had made it to, I believe, the U patch in
yeah,
alphabetical order on their thing. We may cover Ashes of Creation when it gets much closer to release.
yeah.
Um, the reality is that we see Ashes of Creation as not something that's going to release for quite some time. And I
Well,
realize that that sounds contradictory in that we are covering Star Citizen,
yeah.
um, but
Star Citizen
it's
has a
mostly because we also play a lot of Star Citizen, and we're not about to drop $400 to get into the next
the
phase
other
of Ashes.
the other thing is, yeah, the $400 kind of like a price wall is crazy, but the other kind of thing is like Star Citizen is kind of unique in the sense that they have such an open and such a transparent kind of development. That means that we have a lot to talk about each week regarding Star Citizen. Whereas I don't kind of feel like that is the case with with Ashes of Creation. Like Ashes of Creation have some press events where they kind of like they showcase some of the stuff that they've been doing, but it's not a week by week basis. It's not something that like you can fill a good show with.
Yeah,
Whereas Star Citizen you definitely can. So yeah,
yeah. Now, $400 is a lot for a game. Star Citizen for most people is in fact cheaper, unless you're me. Then of
yes.
course I've definitely not spent $400. Uh, I've spent a
Hey,
considerable
I
sum
didn't.
more than that.
I thought I was being very, very measured and very conservative in my like spending for Star Citizen, but like there's definitely a way of being able to showcase how much you've spent so far, and I was surprised that I'm quite close to the 400 500 mark kind of thing. So
See, I was
yeah,
surprised that he wasn't higher. I'm
yeah,
magnitudes higher than that.
yeah,
Um,
you are.
I have independently developed features. Um, uh, Not
But
big
then again,
ones,
you know,
but
I
some.
have ribbed. I have ribbed on you before when you've gone. I've gone and purchased something, and I've gone. It's Star Citizen related, isn't it? And he's like, yes, it is. Like you
To be
idiot.
fair, to be fair, I
To be
have,
fair.
you know, I have um I have purchased a number of ships. All of my ships are on lifetime insurance tokens, so like I'm not wasting any of my money. Um, and I have a number of smaller ships and smaller things like the mules and stuff like that that are to be upgraded into other ships later on.
Hey,
Uh,
you know what? You know what, Ace? You could have done a lot worse with that money. You could have like bought like Ethereum, for example,
yeah,
at
or I
the
could have a
height.
meth addiction or something like that. Like,
You could have
you know,
you could have a meth addiction. Exactly.
like I actually made that joke when my parents were here last winter. And you know, I was like, you know, because they saw my computer setup, which like most people haven't actually seen. It's 3 screens across, 2 screens above. So yes, that's 5, plus a laptop running down kind of over here. I've got the Beacon Mix Create. I've got a Stream Deck. I've got the microphone. I've got 2 Elgato key lights and a Canon EOS M50 camera. So like, you know,
Yeah.
like I'll be the first one to say that like I've got a pretty expensive setup here. Um, and the thing with that is that I made the joke that like it would be cheaper to have like a meth addiction, but at this point, it's probably pretty close. Like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's all kinds of bad. So, anyways, the patch for Star Citizen had finally been announced. There's a whole bunch of new stuff. The Siege of Orison and all of that is in that patch. We'll cover more when we get to the actual section. The only other major thing that they had announced as a huge change at the time was the server cap change from 100, where they had tested all the way up to 120. And because those tests were so successful, they decided that the new server capacity was going to be set at 100. And it's been actually performing pretty well since. So let's
Yeah.
talk about the new world. So, first and
Yes.
foremost, if you have Amazon Prime, there are 2 things that you should do. One, you should go to this website and collect your free weapon skins. They're Prime loot for this month. Go get them.
Yeah.
Um, 2, if you have Prime, that means you also have a Twitch sub for free.
For free.
And in order to access
Courtesy of
that, you can
Chassis.
go underneath McLeod somewhere. It'll say sub, and one of the options under sub is user free
Somewhere there.
Prime sub. Uh, it gives us money. It doesn't cost you anything if you use the free Prime sub.
Yeah, it's
Or if you
somewhere
feel
down
like
there.
supporting us as not a Prime sub, feel free to do that too. But let's kind of hit the ground running, talking about the update that is coming tonight.
Yes.
So I think first we should probably hit on like one of the major things that was an issue is that they had to disable Azoth vials from being used because they were unfortunately being consumed as entire stacks, um, which
Oof.
in some instances consumed way more Azoth than you could
Yeah.
actually hold because you have a 1,000 limit on Azoth. And you
So
know
if you
people burned like stacks of hundreds of them by accident. That was obviously not intentional. They have a fix to that coming in this patch and should be resolved. Um, they in this patch, the other one of the other major things that they're changing is the daily minimum expedition limit is going to be temporarily changed from 15 to 25. They
yeah.
found an issue where 3v3 PvP arenas and other modes were consuming run counts. So this is to kind of prevent that. Um,
or
They understand
at
that this
least
isn't a
alleviate some of
100%
that.
fix, because if you do a shitload of runs in 3v3s, it could potentially prevent you from doing expeditions, which obviously takes a substantial amount more time. But
Yeah.
this is a temporary fix at least.
Like if you are going to be doing expeditions and 3v3 arenas, like get the expeditions kind of out of your system before you're doing your 3v3s, basically.
Yes. Now, keeping in mind that those reset daily, so
Mhm.
25 of each, or 25 in a combination of each of them is probably more than enough time to have a healthy gaming session.
Mhm.
Outside of that, maybe go outside, touch some grass. Uh, you know, uh, 3v3s maybe won't be that long of a thing, but like 25 of them in a row, yeah, like might be
Yeah.
a good idea to stand up and stretch at least. Uh, so they've fixed some salvage issues where well, using hotkeys to salvage wasn't working with the minimum repair. It basically, if your repair parts were full, the hotkeys stopped working for some reason. That'll be fixed.
That's weird.
Um,
Yeah, I always use hotkeys when it comes to that, like the shift seeing, like it is just a godsend. So
yes.
yeah.
Musical instruments. The unstuck function is now disabled when playing an instrument in a musical performance. This is for a number of reasons. Um, let's see, exploration. Basically, the main reason behind that is that it could potentially teleport you to a location that had another performance going at the same time and break things. All of the
Yes,
things.
a lot of
Um,
things.
so yeah, they fixed
Yeah.
a number of other kind of more minor things that if you were interested in reading about,
Then the
the patch notes are
article.
right here. Um,
Hmm.
they also adjusted the collision around the war map to prevent players from climbing over the walls.
Which is
So,
definitely something you don't want them to do.
absolutely. So, from there, the Expedition Group Finder is taking its time to be released. It has had some issues, both in its initial deployment to the PTR and for its release. Glad I'm going to have you cover this.
All right. Well, yeah. So basically, yeah. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we see it like released in a form that isn't broken, or causing like server instabilities at scale. Because like, if anybody was on the PTR when they released it, there was some serious issues with it actually crashing servers. So I think I could speak for a lot of people, for probably for the majority of people, with like, obviously we really want this for a quality of life increase, especially people who aren't rolling with big player groups or all that kind of thing, or and but like we don't want to be hemorrhaging servers, just for the sake of potentially trying to get into an expedition with a few randoms.
Yes.
um so yeah, like, let AGS make sure that they fixed at least the majority of the severe issues with it, and then kind of like deal with the sort of minor issues that like invariably will crop up. But like, yeah, give them some time to make sure that it is actually functioning. Don't badger them so much, because I know that there are people who will badger AGS about like things that they've said are going to be released on a particular patch and then don't. Um, but yeah, it's one of those things where do you want that thing? Except that thing will literally cause like a break in the reality of a rift in the time space fucking continuum, or do you actually just want like the thing to function properly?
Yep. Now the reality here is that they're going to
Yeah.
release it. It is still very much a thing that is being developed. However, of course, you don't want it released broken. You know, like
And I think from what I recall, they are starting to put they want to they want to implementing, or they want to implement on it some kind of cross server capability for it, right?
In the long run,
from what I
yes.
recall, but
So like
not on initial implementation.
not on initial implementation. In the long run,
Okay,
it
okay,
may have some impact to cross server abilities. So
okay.
that will be a very nice thing to have.
I was
Um,
wondering whether that was something that was
yeah.
causing the issues.
There are reasons that this is more complicated than just developing a thing to make a group of 5 people, because of course you're potentially doing it across multiple servers, which
Yeah,
yeah.
you can't just go, oh, we'll tack that in at the end of it. Like you know, if you want that kind of capability, you kind of need to kind of almost build in the framework for it to have for that to actually happen at some point. So yeah,
So also during the weekend, or right before the weekend, I should say, I was I believe the 30th.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so actually it was on the weekend.
Hmm.
Uh, they decided to post a relatively unscheduled. They refer to it as scheduled, but unscheduled to us. Uh, Downtime to resolve some of the issues with the summer event, where certain times the sheet music that's required for some of the quests wasn't dropping, or wasn't dropping appropriately for the quest, which would prevent you from actually completing it, and there was really no other way of getting it. So they changed that, made it available via the Medley Fair kind of event shop, um,
Yeah.
and yeah. Then of course they also fixed a bug where expedition bosses would sometimes not drop loot if killed under certain circumstances, which was happening more than people would like to admit.
Yeah.
um, so that was another good set of changes. Happened at kind of an inconvenient time, because it was happening like
Yeah,
right at peak players.
people
Uh,
complained about, like, oh, why are you doing a downtime in the middle of prime time? Well,
yeah,
as much as and this is kind of like a thing, a bit of a pet peeve, like as much as you may, hate the fact that downtime occurs at your prime time, you know, everybody has to live somewhere, and wherever you're living, there is a time when it's prime time for you to be gaming, and if the patch happens then it's prime time for you, right? But the patch has to happen somewhere at some point, and if there is always a point on the earth that it's prime time for somebody, then you're going to be fucking with somebody's day in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not do it on the height of the most amount of people playing, with their prime time specifically, but I
yes.
from what I recall is they've been shifting around when they do patches, so they don't just do patches all the time on prime time for some particular for particular people. So they've been shifting around the sort of when they do patches on prime time, so it's not always the same people who get uh, who get affected by patches. So if
I mean,
it's
for
your
the most
time,
part,
it's
they
your
do it in
time.
kind of the middle of the night. So like, it's
Mm,
more normal for them to pick, uh, middle of the night type time frame than it is for them to pick a
yeah.
any other time frame here. Um, so it was surprising for them to pick like absolute peak player time, you know, although it may have prevented them from running into other issues, um,
Mm,
which you can see in prior weeks they had you know peak players were in the 17s, 18s on the weekends, but were very much lower even at the peaks. Then post patch here, obviously we've had a number of people return to the game. Um, there were a couple of downtimes for some servers that they needed to restart, and then this is the major patch that they released um, fixing the event,
yeah.
and then the all time peak here for at least the 2 week section at 26,000, like bringing in some decent numbers. Obviously, like there's some hesitation around New World when people are coming back, um, but it's really kind of it's really nice to see these numbers starting to trend upwards. You know,
I think the seasonal events generally tend to bring in more people because like people know that it's not just they're coming back for like, changes or updates to like the stuff that they know already. It's there's something new and something interesting that there's been added to the game that isn't going to be there forever. Like it's a limited time event, and especially the goodwill that AGS kind of garnered from the winter event.
yes.
I think the summer event was like very much a people were anticipating that it was going to be pretty good.
Um, so, and of course, they have a number of other releases coming up here. We'll get the Barnacles and Black Powder is expected to release this week.
Yeah,
However, we haven't received any new update on that. And it should release with the Expedition Finder or Expedition Group Finder. So that'll be
yeah.
another large bonus. And later this fall, we should be seeing Brimstone Sands, which would be a major content release for the game, adding a new zone, a new expedition, a ton more quests. They have confirmed recently that there will not be a gear score increase coming with Brimstone Sands. There will not
Yeah,
be a gear score increase. Said it
yeah.
twice
There
because
was
it's important.
because people freaked out. I think there was either someone had some kind of weird glitch or bug that showed like 655 or something of that form. Like
Somebody
a visual
dropped
bug.
a Vengeful Fisherman 600 gear score item
Mm.
as not a legendary, which is an alarming thing because the last time that happened, it signaled that there was going to be a bump in gear score.
Oh,
Also,
okay.
somebody saw in the code that there is code available to support higher than 600 gear, higher than
I mean,
625 gear score. Um,
quite clearly there's code that allows the number to go up. Like,
yeah. Oh,
I mean, if you didn't think it was possible, tell me. I'll tell you it's possible. But
yep,
I think both AGS and you and I know that pushing it is not going to be healthy for the game.
yes. Now, one of the things when it comes to the concurrent player counts is they also just recently merged servers.
Yes.
This caused some rather lengthy queues on some of the servers in regions that only have one remaining server. Um, and for those that don't know, there is a hard cap on the server at 2,000 active people. This means if more people want to come back, they need to spool up new servers and they need to find a way of enabling those people to get onto servers that are um, not massively overpopulated.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I've also seen a number of calls, and I've called for this for several months, of servers, at least one server being started from scratch with no ability to transfer to it for the first 6 months of that server's existence.
It would be a
Basically,
nice
a
thing to
fresh
have.
server that people can create an alt, have some fun with it. Like the playing ground is level at the start. Announce it
Yeah.
obviously ahead of time so people can prepare for that kind of like rush and craziness. Um, you know, I
It would
would
be
level up a new character if that was a thing.
it would be a good it would be a good kind of initial test to see how popular that sort of thing would be.
Mm-hmm.
And then potentially it could be a scenario where that kind of server like that sort of new server thing occurs every 6 months or so.
Yeah.
You get an extra new server, every say, say every region gets a new server every 6 months, like that
Mm-hmm.
that you can't transfer a character over to. Um, that sort of thing. And then, in 6 months, the kind of jury's out as to whether AGS wants to sort of merge that server into like the existing servers.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
Who
think
knows?
there's been a number of people that have said, with the amount of duped gold out there, with the amount of, all of those things, even though there's been a significant effort to clean all of that up,
Hmm.
there's a number of people that say, hey, in order for me to come back, I would prefer if you know, instead of having to play on a server that might have a lot of this tainted gold and a lot of this duped items and stuff like that, that they can just start fresh, um, you know, and it makes it's so much nicer of an experience to start where everybody else is equal with you than starting from behind, as we have in many times exemplified how even at level 60, a fresh level 60 and a 625 gear scored level 60 are two very different experiences.
Hmm.
In terms of like the PvP aspects of the game, um, and being able to go through that with people and feel like you're competitive, um, and that people don't have this massive advantage over you would be a draw for many people. Um, on the other hand, on another one of our topics here, uh, in terms of catching up and getting things done faster. Last weekend and this weekend, there will be and has been a double XP for fishing and music trade skills. Um, I for one,
Yeah.
I took the opportunity and I finished my fishing. They also reduced the total XP required for fishing.
Yeah.
So by like 20%. So if you spend, 2 hours, 3 hours maybe, you can grind your fishing to max, and get it
I
to 200.
there is a bit of a cautionary sort of thing to note of caution there, but you have to be just make sure that you like break away from like the fishing mode every so often and move around a bit, because
Yes.
like if you stay in that mode, the AFK timer may time you out, and
Yep.
people have been kind of getting like like thwacked with that, um
It
when
can be very
without
inconvenient if your
realizing.
server has a queue.
Yeah, exactly. So
So
just make
be
sure that
like
you're busting
cast
out
and
of
then
that.
move around when you're done,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then
Just
cast
make sure
again.
you just make sure you bust out of that every so often. So like the game knows that you're actually at your desk.
Mhm.
You know, otherwise the mid management guy will come and thwack you out of the server
Yes. Um,
for being for going fucking yellow. For going yellow rather than green. That's a callback to the previous conversation that we were having before the actual main show started, by the way.
mhm. Oh yeah.
Anyway.
Um, so there's also been a bug on server transfers, that there is a workaround. So if you're having issues with that specific bug, you can check out the forums. The link for that is right there. Um, so I think we can talk a little bit about our impressions for this patch.
Mm.
I for one, it was really nice doing expeditions without having to deal with the orbs. Was it has been just so much better. It's so much easier to get in and getting doing them with people. Where one person's not sitting there trying to recoup their cost.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
you know, I don't know if I don't think the new dungeon comes tomorrow. I think it's going to come out later this week.
And I think to some degree that there's probably some people out there that are kind of thankful that it's gone, because they're not in the situation where they have to, or at least being forced to go ahead and actually do the expedition when they don't want to do the expedition, but like they're actually selling the orb to somebody in order to actually for them to do it, that kind of thing. We talked about in previous shows about how the awkwardness of trying to sell an orb when you have to activate that orb and be inside of the dungeon for it, you know,
Yes.
for it to function, right?
Yeah.
Because they were bind on pickup, or bind on bind on pickup, yeah, bind on
Mhm.
pickup. So the fact that they're now gone, you don't have to deal with that and deal with that awkwardness of like trying to sort of sell it to somebody, but you can't give it to them because of how the game kind of wants to limit it. Yeah, it's just a much better way of dealing with getting people into that content. It's great.
Yes. I also like. I'm a big fan of the Guitar Hero Rock Band style music system. I had a chance to try it when it was on the PTR. I thought it was interesting then. I didn't really get into it. And standing around in town playing music, and like I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but I can play most songs on skilled, and get an amazing score, according to them. So that
Yeah.
said, when I switch it over to expert, that all goes out the window. Adding the W key to that equation just wrecks me.
Yeah.
Like, um, but it is quite fun. It's kind of cool. I've had some kind of impromptu where I'll be playing and somebody will be like, "Hey, can I join you for the next one?" And then we end up playing songs together, and somebody else joins, and you end up with a whole band playing songs. Just having fun. Um, and it's a really kind of cool thing to do. Like,
How are you
I
with the
think that
mandolin, by the way?
I like the mandolin. My preferred instruments are the mandolin and the guitar. I'm not a
Nice.
huge fan of the flute. I know it's got most of like the solo songs. And I'm not a percussion person. You know, I
Well, it's a very percussive kind of method of playing, or
well,
method
like
of playing
I'm
instruments
not a
and stuff.
drums
But yeah,
person. When I think of
that's fair enough.
percussion, I think of drums.
Yeah.
Like I'm now in reality, my favorite instruments, like I'm a saxophone player, so I've played
All right.
everything
Okay.
from the baby sax all the way down to the bass saxophone, like and everything in between. I owned an alto sax, I owned a tenor sax, and I owned a Barry at one point. Um, the baritone sax is by far the most fun to play out of the bunch, but um, you know, I'm one of if you know anybody that has ever played a saxophone, uh, ask them what they think of a baritone sax playing a jazz solo. And if they don't say that it's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen, then they're lying. Uh, frankly, so here's the thing: it's heavier than a tuba because a baritone sax is about I'm sitting down. It's maybe 4.5 feet tall, and it
Considering,
wraps
yeah.
around on itself multiple times.
Damn. Okay.
So like it's not a light piece of equipment.
No.
And like it's got a super nice bass like feel to it, and it's so much fun. Just
So I might have a band that I might have to introduce you to if you don't know already. But considering that you like saxophone and I don't know, you might like the 80s kind of like synth vibe, but like there's a synthwave band that like you might quite
oh
like.
yeah,
So yeah,
oh yeah,
this will be after the show, but yeah.
yeah. So naturally, I'm a big fan of the music mechanics. I thought that was actually a really kind of cool addition. It goes back to the initial launch where people were playing music through their in-game voice chat. Like the guy was actually on his guitar playing music through his thing, and this is kind of a cool way to add those in. We knew at launch that instruments were a thing in the game code, so it's not something that like just kind of came out of nowhere. It's something that's been in development for quite a long time. But it was really cool to see that they added this in. And some of the songs are actually like most of the songs are actually really good. In fact, like as solo parts, most of the songs, actually all of the songs, as solo parts for each piece or and each type of instrument are actually pretty good. Like, they're, some of them are a little repetitive for my taste, but like the guitar parts and the mandolin parts are just wonderful. Um, and it's like one of the cool things is you get on like one of the world tours and you're in Merkgard, and everybody is completing one of the portals, and you're just standing there just like jamming out, power
Yeah.
bard style. Like, that's pretty cool. Like,
That is pretty cool.
you
And
know
to be completely honest, like in all honesty, the songs that they included with it, like, are actually not bad at all. Like,
yeah,
in all honesty, they're actually really pretty good.
yeah,
Like,
like,
because they can, you can have you. There is definitely possibilities, and you and me, like we've skirted around, kind of like looking at like various different sort of song libraries and music libraries to sort of find different sort of to find sort of like the right kind of sort of style and feel for the intro song that we use. And so we've been through libraries of people who literally sell their songs, sell their compositions and stuff, and there are definitely some like cringy stuff out there. And the fact that, like, AGS found a whole bunch of songs that are anything but is pretty damn good, to be completely honest.
mhm.
Yeah. The songs and the stylings and all that kind of fit really, really well with the game and with the settings. So that's really awesome.
So like I'm really happy to see stuff like that added to the game. I'm really happy to see um the obviously the orbs get removed, the buff to outpost rush caches, where they're almost guaranteed to give an expertise bump, is a great buff. Um, you know, there's so many just cool things. Like, I really appreciated being able to change my mind on fishing from something that I was just assuming I was never going to get to 200 to something that I completed in the first weekend of times two expertise, or times two on that.
Yeah.
I think, and I provided feedback on this to the devs, that the speed of progression for music at the times two rate should be the speed of progression for music standard. And the reason that I believe that is that I believe that the rate at which a single use of the song is paired against like a single cast for fishing is about even.
Okay.
The problem is the time to complete those two tasks are vastly different.
Yeah, yeah. And so this is something that, like, I kind of feel like AGS needs to sort of get a very much more sort of um much more technical on, much more, um like, have this thing much more standardized, but get an impression as to what they feel, a standard level of progression, in terms of skill points, or XP should be, right? Throughout the game, like, if you're doing a particular profession, and leveling that profession up, you should be getting X amount of XP per hour if you're doing that profession, right? And then they should look at how long, those professions take to do, like, per action, that kind of thing, in a sort of general sense, and then adjust the amount of XP that you're getting from that accordingly, because, like,
Yes.
that's how you create a scenario where you don't where players don't feel like doing one thing feels like, much more of a grind or much worse, compared to another thing.
Yeah. So
If
like
you're able to
slapping
level it.
rocks and doing mining for an hour, if you
Yeah.
get 20,000 XP doing that in an hour, you should also
Yeah.
get 20,000 XP doing, if
Yeah.
even if you hit, let's say you hit 1,000 rocks in an hour, versus if you hit, 15 songs and that's the max you could do, like, depending on time. Like, obviously you could fit more than
Yeah.
that. I'm just randomly spitballing
like
numbers
like
here. Like the
like for
amount of XP for the time should be about the same, and the progression for
yeah,
the time should be about the same.
and but it can lend itself to like this sort of like approach to things can lend itself to to other areas, right? For example, the drops that happen on various different things, right?
Mhm.
If you're mining, if you're out mining, are the drops for cinnabar, like the random drops for cinnabar and stuff like that, are they the same as ironwood sap? I think I don't think it is, because there's somebody out there who's been, you know, knocking down ironwood trees for a long period of time that has, in 6 months, only gotten one,
Yeah.
and for various different reasons. For various different
There
reasons,
should also be like a
there's
pity
reasons for
mechanic
that.
when it comes to like those high end drops. I say this as
To
somebody
a
who didn't
degree,
get one of the cursed chests for the fucking bunny event.
yeah,
After killing
yeah.
2,000 plus fucking bunnies, I still didn't get a chest. Like, fuck you, people who got it the first first five bunnies and logged off. Like,
I mean, that wasn't me, so you don't have to come at me for that
yeah.
particular thing, because I definitely had to work my way through a fair amount of bunnies to get it. But I think Crown got it fairly quickly. I can't remember whether Crown got it fairly quickly.
I can
He
remember
did.
there was a guy who we ran out to Bunny Island together because I was like, I'm just gonna go farm
Mhm.
these and just set it in global. You know, we went out there.
I'll come in.
I was hanging out with this guy, and he literally was the second goddamn bunny, and he got the drop, and he was like, "Well, that's that. Good luck.
That's that
Hopefully,
bye.
it drops
And then
soon."
you're
And
like,
it's like, "You goddamn son of a bitch."
and then it's just like,
And then I'm sitting there 3 days
that
later, going,
that
"This sucks."
yeah, the classic SpongeBob kind of moment. 12 days later, fucking bunnies
Oh
just dropped the
god.
goddamn chest already.
Yeah. So, needless to say, that's a whole thing in itself. But
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of like really cool stuff that I appreciate about the game, the way that they've continued into it. Um, the like just like a lot of the improvements that they've made, like the inventory, being able to kind of shift things around. Now that they're fixing salvaging, that's even better. The perfect salvage system is actually quite nice as well. Although I would argue that the perfect salvaging system uh, needs to allow for the the uh, epic and legendary drops for perfect salvage to be turned into gypsum.
Yeah.
In just change the amount, like have it be one for the legendary because I still haven't gotten one, and I salvage a shitload of stuff. Like
Mm.
you know, just change it so that you require more to do it. It'll be fine. It's so much
So
better
that's
than
the kind
getting
of
4 ironwood or whatever. Like great, it gives you a way of progressing in that profession, but like also like come on.
yeah.
Um, so that would be my one change for the perfect salvage system is to just allow for the epic drops from perfect salvage to increase or to give the option to be changed into gypsum orbs.
That'd be pretty nice. Yeah.
Um, but I mean, outside of that, like I don't have a whole lot of complaints.
No.
I
No.
think
Neither.
the game's actually in a pretty decent spot. Obviously, it's got some bugs that can be fixed still, as with every game.
Yeah.
But
Like in terms of those bugs, like just as a PSA, like you may find that your meteor shower is broken, or at least the graphic for it remains active when swapping from away from that particular weapon. So like, but there is a fix coming. I think there's an issue with binding the space button to something else. The
yes, if
Berserker
you
axe is
unbind your
missing
space,
apparently.
don't unbind your space button until they fix that.
Yeah. So
Um,
keep the space button doing something. Don't try and unbind it or bind it to something else, or bind it to some other action. Like, yeah, the Berserker axe is missing, but it will come back when they update. and the cyclone on the spear is apparently not giving stamina back after after you do it. So but that is on their radar and being looked at. So as with all things, when you release a large content patch, some aspects or some things you know are still broken, or in some way broken in some way, shape, or form. But
Yes, the
just
the
we'll get to
Azoth
them.
bug that is
Yeah,
like that's by far like the nice
we're
thing is
we're,
in the
we're
patch that's
mentioning.
coming tonight is going to be fixed. Like
Yeah,
that'll
exactly.
be a huge thing.
We're
Um,
mentioning. I'm mentioning those bugs because they're some of the smaller bugs that people have been like, have like found, that kind of thing. Obviously, the Azoth bug is the one, that massive
yes.
major one that's on their radar that they are fixing as a priority. Okay, so like, don't worry about that. Like, AGS know about that for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So things to note about this patch is I don't believe that uh, the new expedition, the barnacles and black powder, I don't believe is in this patch. I think it's going to come later this week. There's some like last minute tuning going on,
Mm-hmm.
and they here's the thing, they want to release they want to not they want to release barnacles and black powder with the expedition finder or expedition group finder. So like I would assume the two of them are going to be in the same patch. Um, you know, they're kind of integrated in a way. Like you can tell one kind of uses the code for the other in a little. But I would assume that will come out maybe either later this week or very early next week. Um, I think we've still got time this week that they could surprise us like they did last week with a late week update. Um, and yeah.
Mm.
So with
You know what
that,
I just found? You know what I just found? I know that
so,
we're just wrapping up the New World stuff. You know what I just found on my on YouTube that could serve to me? The New World classic guitar feature. The actual composer of the classical guitar kind of songs,
oh yeah.
playing those songs
Hmm.
IRL. Actually pretty cool. So
And yeah, one of the guys who is the guy that they reached out to actually play the songs, do the recording. Um,
mm,
he's actually been on the subreddit a number of times, and people have been putting his videos up because it's really cool
yeah.
to like hear from the person who actually like recorded the song.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Um,
composed it as well. So,
yeah.
you know, not just recording it.
Mhm. Now, there's also been some interesting memes where people have been using the voice in-game voice to pretend that a different song is playing than is actually playing on their instrument, which I think is
Mm.
really funny. Um, but I think it would be quite comical for a New World to put in some music uh, that is less indie. I don't know, like like more like mainstream music. I think that'd be
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of comical. All of a sudden you come into to Markgard and you walk into the church at the top of Markgard and Green Day's Basket Case is playing. Like like just a whole different
uh,
experience up there.
there. Oh, I swear there was. I swear that there was a Reddit. Someone did a kind of a Reddit meme as such. It was great.
Oh man.
Something
Um,
equivalent to that.
So, as stated, obviously we love covering New World. We cover other games as well. We want to thank everybody for coming for the New World stuff. If you want to hang around and learn something about Star Citizen and Lost Ark, there's a whole bunch of news to be had. The Lost Ark section is super small this week, because the game's been released for 2 years. Like, the
They're on
updates to
kind of
the
autopilot.
yeah, their monthly update or like their major releases are much bigger, but like in between is kind of dead, in all honesty. Um,
It's literally just like, the thing is we're not at the bleeding edge, like even at this particular point, like, the Western client like isn't actually on the bleeding edge of the Smilegate's kind of development
mhm.
of it as such. So a lot of the bug fixing, a lot of all that kind of stuff is sort of um almost already done, to be honest.
Yes.
There's some niggling kind of stuff that occurs every so often, but yeah, when it's not like a big content drop in Lost Ark, it's the news can be fairly light when it comes to Smilegate's main game, I guess.
Mhm.
But anyway, let's talk Lost Ark.
So before people take off, make sure to hit the follow button so you make sure to catch our show
Mm-hmm.
next time. Our pre-show starts at 6 p.m. Eastern Time every Wednesday. We may have a break 2 weeks from now because I'll be traveling. Um, but make sure to hit the follow so you know when we go live. If you want to also join our Discord, we're not one of those servers that pings people all of the time for everything. You actually have to opt in for pings.
Yeah,
So
we don't.
if you're interested, there's a whole bunch of automated feeds to make sure that you get all of the latest news from Star Citizen, from Lost Ark, from New World, and we're talking all of it. Like we track their
Yeah,
Twitters, we track their subreddits, we track all of the official announcements. Like
and
everything you could possibly want tracked is on there, automatic. So if you're interested in seeing those things and you're kind of like watching them like a hawk for new information, our Discord server is probably the place to be. It also
and
houses the largest amount of pre-released uh, art and concept art from New World's development.
yeah, stuff that
Um,
isn't actually been deleted, like
yes,
stuff that's been deleted from pretty
yes.
much from the internet almost,
We
but not
have
quite.
the original YouTube videos that New World deleted from their original vision of the game.
Yeah.
So, if you're interested in checking out where New World came from and a lot of the history around that, please come check out the Discord. We're also fun to chat with.
I,
Like this is us normally. Like we just normally just bullshit about games. Like you know,
yeah, yeah.
and we're not like some of the other kind of streamers out there. We do actually want to hang out with you guys. Like that's our purpose. So
Hmm.
so feel free, join the Discord, have some fun there. Or if you just
I
want to
did.
use it to just keep up to date on stuff, that's fine too.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I did want to say that, like, we also have for various different games, we have a Reddit feed as well. And the
Mhm.
interesting thing about our Reddit feed is our Reddit feed like doesn't get Reddit mod deleted, unlike actual Reddit. So if you are interested as to the stuff that gets deleted from the subreddits, um, it's all there.
Yep, it's all there in all its glory,
Yep.
and other like it'll bring you
Horrible
in, and you'll be able
otherwise.
to see the comments even if it's been deleted. But
Yep.
many of the pictures from them are still there.
Yeah.
So
So.
that's very much an interesting thing to be able to see. Uh, you
Hmm.
know, I hold no responsibility for any leaks or anything like that that happen based on Reddit posts that don't get deleted on my server. Sorry, I've already got enough of a job being one of the Reddit moderators for r-New World Game, and I frankly don't care if it happens to be on my thing as a dead link that you can see the comments and the picture if they posted a picture. So
So yeah, just a little
yeah,
morsel of interesting kind of stuff that might tempt you to sort of want to check it out as such. But
and
yeah,
of course,
check
like
it out.
with Discord's search feature, you can sit there and search for like when was the last time they talked
Forgot
about
about that.
wars? When was what was the developer
Yeah, yeah,
comment on
yeah. Good
this?
point.
Like, there's a lot of ability to actually see what's going on and be able to reference like historical stuff because that stuff has been running for a long time.
Yeah,
Um,
that particularly for New World, the
yeah,
that Reddit channel has been running for a while.
yeah. I may or may not use that Reddit channel knowing when new threads are coming up.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
I've also got a whole nother
Okay.
server that does that now with the other Reddit mods, uh, but yeah,
But it was trialed here first.
yes, it was trialed here
That's
first.
the important thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So with that, that's all we got for New World. If you guys have additional questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll try and answer them throughout the show. This is, of course, a live talk show, so like, you know, uh, we kind of off the cuff
Yeah.
do shit all the time. You know,
And we're always interested in your perspective as well. So don't think that like, oh, I have a perspective on something, but like, oh, they won't want to hear it. No, we do.
so and
Yeah.
we're of course big fans of New World. Like, you know, I see New World as actually reasonably, if not actually pretty successful. You know, its launch was not perfect by any means, and it's not a perfect game by any means, but it is a fun game, and
Yeah.
that's the important part. You know, I know for me recently, I haven't played Lost Ark in about a week, which says something because I normally do all of my dailies every day, and I have 9 characters.
Normally you're very, very much like, on those dailies on Lost Ark, and like all I've been hearing from you is, New World this, New World that, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
And it's also been a challenge with Star Citizen's new release coming out as well. That my time has been split between things. So with that, let's quick cover some Lost Ark stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Because the Lost Ark section this week is actually really short. The weekly patch is basically focused around gold earned from the rapport system. It will be received as withheld funds, which are subject to a 3-day withholding period, which they're restricting in the following ways. You cannot send withheld funds through the mail. You cannot destruct from withheld funds when accepting billing mail. You cannot use in one-on-one trades, auction houses, marketplaces, or loot auctions. For the first 72 hours, so this is a different one. For the first 72 hours after using a paid power pass, all gold earned by trading UNIS tokens will be received as withheld funds, and subject to a 3-day withholding period. I don't understand why, but sure, whatever.
So it's basically to stem people generating gold, transferring gold, and then basically, rinsing and repeating for various different things like, gold generation and.
Oh yeah, but if you're gonna pay him $50 to get a tier 3 character paid power pass, like.
Yes, but the thing is, right, so this is one of those things where it's more about the perception than about the actual action of it, because if basically if there seemed to be kind of cashing in on that sort of stuff, then that looks really bad.
So I mean,
and that has a
what's
very
the
negative impact.
difference between them doing it 3 days from then with the same UNIS tokens that they would be doing it 3 days earlier?
Because it's not an instant sort of like, it's not an instant sort of thing. So they have I guess the sort of like the lead time on that like gives them an opportunity to potentially see things coming and basically, come in if they feel that they need to prevent a very negative scenario from occurring. Maybe. That's all I can imagine. Like, when you got lead time on that, like it gives you metrics on what's going to happen, right? And if something's about to happen, that will definitely like screw with your game's economy because of someone injecting a whole bunch
why.
of
Okay.
stuff.
Turkey Goblins in chat.
Okay.
Gold from the coins are withheld for 3 days if you recently used a power pass. Bots were power passing, completing UNIS tasks, and then selling the gold and then charging back. That makes sense.
There you go. The chargeback. That's the chargeback. Okay, that makes more sense. Yeah.
Thank you for catching that.
Well,
that's a good catch right there.
Yeah,
that is a very good catch. That makes so much more sense. So basically, this whole pass is this whole weekly update is around basically introducing withheld funds, but also like
and you don't want to be
creating restrictions on bots.
Yeah, but like the other kind of thing is not just in terms of restrictions for bots, but you don't want to be you don't want to be as a company generating issues, basically generating a reason for issues to be kind of being created for your partners when it comes to for the companies that you're partnering with in order to do monetary transactions, right? Like, because you know uh, big companies like that would just be like, you know what, like if you're going to be presenting or causing people to be generating huge amounts of cashback kind of uh like transaction cash like chargebacks and stuff like that, then they will start to basically withdraw their support for your product, um or that kind of thing, or blacklist you in some way, shape, or form, right? Like, it's not a good thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
So that makes a lot of
so
things. Thank you very much, Turkey Goblin.
yes, that is a huge catch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me that the chargebacks are actually a huge problem because for most MMOs, they become a pretty large problem. I know for EVE Online, it was a permanent ban if you did any kind of chargeback, regardless of the amount, regardless of the issue. And
Yeah.
of course, in the age of stolen credit cards, yep, they are, it's more and more of an issue where people, you know,
There's
are not
there's a reason.
protecting their credit cards and not monitoring them as well as they
Yeah.
should.
And there's a reason why there's a reason why, sort of like, say for example on Steam, like you cannot, like there's a lot more restrictions on what you can sell on the Steam marketplace nowadays. And a lot of that is down to nefarious activities with stolen credit cards and people trying to launder money through certain systems.
Mhm.
um
And a
and
lot of
yeah,
this has
so
also changed with like the Steam trusted account and stuff like that,
yeah.
um, where like they're trying to validate the user, the credit card, and the system so that like your everything is in the right way that it should be, and that people aren't adding a credit card and instantly able to create problems, especially if the name on the credit card is not the same as the name on the Steam account, or on
Yeah.
prior credit cards. I know that's one of the big ones that they've been running into challenges with. Um,
You know what's very interesting? I don't know whether this is connected. It's connected in my head in some way, shape, or form. But like, what I didn't realize was like, so one of the things that I did over the weekend was I actually did a 5 hour stream of Eve Online sort of player sort of organized PvP tournament. And one of the things that was really good was we had some assistance from the developers to actually use some of the official systems that they use for the alliance tournaments, so like the tournament tool and that kind of stuff like that. And um, what's required, what's interesting there is they have changed and recently changed their kind of stance for that sort of stuff, and they require now for any and everyone who is like using those sort of systems to be like triple and quadruple verified and checked and stuff like that. So apparently before it wasn't that much of an issue, but with these new changes and with the verifications, they've had to. It puts a whole huge amount more work in terms of actually making sure that like whoever's using those systems is verified, and actually who they are, who they say they are, kind of thing. And I had to go through a bunch of that, jump through a bunch of like um, you know, uh, a bunch of hoops and that kind of stuff in order to actually get that to work, which was a little bit infuriating in certain at a certain particular point in time when I was trying to actually get stuff done for the actual stream. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. You know, verification ID and all that kind of stuff these days is like a lot more required in a whole bunch of different ways.
oh, and
But especially when it comes to actual monetary transactions these days.
this is actually like a more pervasive thing um than like even I initially thought. Like I, for those that don't know, like I'm very frequently invited to alpha and beta tests um, for
You
just
got
a
put. I
variety
swear
of games.
you got put on some kind of like whitelist of some form, like at
Mhm.
some point, and I don't know how, I don't know where or how or why, but like you lucky bastard
Yep.
is what I'm gonna
I
say
don't
with
know
that.
how I got on the list. I
Yeah.
don't know how it works, but I have been invited in the last 5 years. I've been invited to about 100 different um, alpha VIP event type things, where like it just like it is what it is. Like I didn't put myself on this list, that's for sure. But like um, I have a tendency to be on this list of people that they just want, you know, they want my advice on things, and a number of these require NDAs, and they are getting more and more strict with the NDAs. In terms of like how much information you have to give them about yourself and the validation of that information. So, for instance, I recently signed an NDA. I can't tell you which company or any of that, but I can tell you kind of the details of the process of signing the NDA. Um, the NDA, I signed the NDA, gave them name, address, all of that, and in order for the NDA to validate, they then mailed me a code to validate my NDA.
Interesting.
So, physical address, they wanted to ensure that I was the recipient and could validate that from a physical location, um, which was interesting to see. That's by far the most pervasive I've seen from from signing an NDA's perspective. Um,
That's pretty like
yeah, because they
ridiculous.
don't just want to know who you are; they want to know that they can find you and sue you if it comes up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because like here's the thing: some of these early alphas that are not like, like some of the games I get invited to are not publicly known games. Like
Mm.
they have not been officially announced, let alone anything else. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, hey, like we want you to test this, we want you to give our feedback on this, but we also want to make sure that if you were to leak something, your ass is on the line. You know,
Yeah.
um, so
No, that
it's
makes a lot
interesting
of
to see the
sense.
community change from like, everybody getting, here's a random sign up with however many random emails you want to generate, and
Yeah.
um, there's a
Producing
implied
bajillions of
NDA
keys, right? Yeah.
to a like you're signing multiple documents, and validating your physical address in multiple ways, and it's like, okay, this is starting to get a little serious.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine that.
um, so it's always interesting to see, but like I think that's going to be more and more into the future, like the two-factor authentication, type stuff, as well as, like with your credit card. It amazes me that more credit cards haven't moved to some sort of two-factor authentication for online purchases. You know,
Mm.
um, and actually, in all honesty, I think one of the best things that you can use is something like PayPal. Um,
You know what? There like with regards to PayPal, there wasn't like I had a lot of issue using PayPal for a long period of time, and the reason why was because, at least from what I was able to sort of determine, like going through all of the various different settings and stuff like that I had on my PayPal account, was because I I have issue with using things, especially with using like online stuff that doesn't have like a two-factor authentication that isn't like app based,
mhm.
because the email based sort of two-factor authentication is has a lot of vulnerabilities. And as far as I understand it, app-based authentication is like 1,000 times better, like tens of thousands. Like I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know. I'm obviously I'm making up like a percentage based on this, but like it's way more secure using an app-based
Mhm.
authenticator. And for the longest time, it seemed that PayPal didn't have an app-based two-factor authentication, and pretty much almost as soon as they actually did, I was using PayPal for all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I don't know what your experiences with PayPal was like
and like
regarding app
obviously I use
2FA.
two-factor authentication on everything via the app.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean I've used PayPal forever, and like the two things that I enjoy about it is that one, it comes with a lot of guarantees. So like
Mm,
if somebody scams you, like you buy something on eBay or you buy something on on Craigslist, and you're paying via PayPal. If somebody scams you, you can get your money back and they'll deal with the problem. Um,
yeah,
and the other side of it is I don't have to give potentially sketchy services access to my credit information. For instance,
exactly.
the Chinese government already knows most of the things about me because I'm a government employee and my information has been hacked so many times it's not even funny. Um, you know,
Yeah,
um, but
but when
they
you
don't also need the Epic Game Store to have my credit card information. For those that don't know, the Epic Game Store is the Chinese government.
yeah,
Like,
they have a backdoor
you
into
know,
that.
just because they've put a facade of a McDonald's on front does not mean that it's not them. Like, it's just a cardboard front. Like,
Yeah,
it's like a
yeah,
North Korean grocery store. Like, you know, it exists if you believe it exists, but it's not really the thing that you think it is.
not at all. Not
So
at all.
like just putting that out there, like there are reasons to use a third party service like PayPal when you're doing online transactions. So
Yeah.
um yeah.
That's also one of the reasons why you have these companies that will produce like expendable temporary credit card numbers and stuff like that. Like they create sort of like temporary cards for you to use in various different things that expire literally like within the hour, something of that form. But yeah,
Interesting. I've just pulled this up. Vanguard's anti-cheat software has some interesting stuff to it. There's a lot of
yeah,
controversy. It runs
I
in
can
kernel
imagine
mode,
so.
which is frightening. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that is frightening.
So here's the thing. Like we can talk. We're in the Lost Ark section. Talk about bots and that. Like, this section is in no, like Lost Ark as a game is in no way unfamiliar with bots. And
Oh yeah.
some of the challenges, and I've dug into this because I was really curious on like how they were getting away with this.
Mm,
And there's a number of different ways that this works. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to look in your memory or in your system's memory to identify if you're running specific programs that are attempting to alter the game's memory. So like,
yeah,
what it's temporarily storing there can be changed. And for those that are accustomed to like single player games and memory edits, and being able to like adjust your money and stuff like that in like Cyberpunk, for instance, you can memory edit the shit out of that game.
yeah.
Um,
But they don't
you know,
really care because it's a single player game,
yeah,
so you're not like
yeah. So
not
you're
fucking with
not
somebody
discounting somebody
else's.
else's experience by
Yeah,
hacking the shit out of it and giving yourself a shitload of money. Like,
exactly.
but if you're in Lost Ark and you suddenly memory edit yourself into thousands of gold, like that's a problem. Now that's also handled on the server side, so that's not something you can just edit out. But there are other things that can, and that do happen on the client side. Um,
Hmm.
oh hey, I just
Yeah,
scored
not
a
not every
drop.
Oh, very nice. Not everything, yeah. So basically, not everything can be checked at every instance in an online game kind of thing. Like to some degree, the developers have to sort of get to a point where they're going to go, well, this is the stuff that needs to be critically like checked and made sure that doesn't change. Like some of the other stuff, they kind of like leave by the wayside and are just something that the server sort of trusts to some degree the client, like the information from the client as such, because otherwise the tick rate, the sort of refresh rate for the information that you get about a game will be much slower, and then the experience of the snapping kind of experience of the game would suffer seriously for in that scenario. Yeah.
It's apparently a drop going for Lost Ark right now.
Oh, nice.
Pixel glasses and shard set. So
Ooh, lovely.
I just saw that because it popped up on my thing. You probably have to watch about 4 hours worth of a Lost Ark channel that has drops running to get it, but the more you know. So one of the other interesting ways that bots work, and we found this out through kind of um, no, we're not producers of New World. We're not developers
No,
either. Although
no.
we have communications with the developers, we are very much our own kind of deal. Um, that said, we are probably one of the longest running content creators for New World and for New World at least,
Yeah.
because we've been making New World content for about 2 years, 8 months, ballpark.
Yeah, something around
You
that.
know, so like in terms of like subject matter expertise, like we know our shit when it comes to New World.
Yeah.
Less or so with
And
Lost Ark and I'd say Star Citizen we're pretty knowledgeable on, but that one
we'll
we
get in
kind of
there.
come and go
We'll get
from.
in there. I think there's some, some arcane kind of knowledge way back in Star Citizen that we're not really that clued up on, but you know, we're working on it.
Yes. So that said, like one of the other cool ways, or one of the other ways, I don't want to call it cool, or from a technical perspective, it is kind of cool. One of the other interesting ways that bots are bypassing this is running multiple instances on the same hardware. So, like running multiple virtual machines. And one of the virtual machines is viewing the other one's screen and basically pixel
Mhm.
detecting what's going on. Uh,
Okay.
and pretending that it is the keyboard and mouse for the other machine.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
it is
Yeah.
able
All
to
right.
basically pretend that one of the
VM in a VM.
clients is acting in a natural way, but of course, most programs don't look natural,
Yeah.
and can't
And
predict
so it
everything.
kind of it doesn't look like it's a memory injection because essentially it's kind of not. Um, although you know what, I did see I did see a like this was a little while ago, but I did see an article of somebody who had gotten Doom working in Minecraft. So
Yeah.
I mean, if they can get Doom working in Minecraft, you never know. There might be people out there that have gotten Lost Ark working in Minecraft.
Mhm.
I don't think Spargate has really looked that deep into this particular rabbit hole in terms of like how to prevent botting. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's a bit esoteric.
Yeah. That said, like it is really cool to see. So with that, that's all we've got for Lost Ark for today.
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah,
a shorter section. Obviously, we're kind of ramping off a couple of things that kind of came up. Um, but we've got a decent amount to talk about on Star Citizen here.
yeah.
Um,
I may have played a little bit of Star Citizen over the last week.
yeah.
Not gonna lie.
So let's start with the fact that I realize this is out of order.
It doesn't.
3.17.2 has released. Um,
Yes.
it has had some issues, but overall the gameplay is pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
There are of course bugs. Welcome to Star Citizen. You know,
Yeah.
like that should not be a surprise in any way. Um, if it is, then I I don't know what to say.
I don't know what.
Like I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
thought
what you
that
expected.
myself.
Um,
Like,
so that said, I think we need to talk about the initial, we'll call it stipend gate, um,
yeah.
where they
Just
wanted
so
to give
you.
players this amount of in-game money for actions participated in uh, prior to being prior to the 3.17.2 persistence wipe, because they're going to wipe everybody's inventory and all of that. Basically, if you'd played before, uh, you know, it's kind of this opportunity that you've got a little bit of extra credits. Now, uh, I have a good one.
Mm.
The reality here is that people logged in and went, "Holy shit! They just gave me a lot of money." Like I logged in and I think I had like 8 million gold or 8 million AUEC. McLeod had substantially more than that. I know Jurius had more
Yeah.
than a decent chunk as well. And these guys instantly went out and bought ships. Me, being the person that I am, was playing New World, and I was like, oh, I'll get to buying ships later. It'll be fine. Well, the next day they decide, oh no, we gave everybody too much money. It wasn't the intended amount of money that we thought we were giving, and instead it was much higher. This led to some problems
Yes. Yes.
because they then took the money from the people who hadn't spent it. So I did not get any added ships to this. Others, like McLeod and Jurius, managed to get,
Hey. Hey.
millions and millions of dollars worth of ships.
The early bird, mate. The early bird.
Yeah. This is what I
That's all I'm
get for
saying.
playing New World when I should have logged in and spent the money in Star Citizen. It was too good to be true. Um, yeah. So, anyways, that naturally that created both this impact of like, wow, there's this ton of money, this is wonderful, and then all of a sudden the feeling of having all of that taken away, and then the follow up being that they didn't take the ships away from the people that had purchased the ships. So those that spent the money early got to keep all of the rewards, and those of us that didn't got nothing.
Hey, I'm just saying, like, for all of the stuff that I did in the previous patch, like, I think I deserve a 600i. Okay.
No comment. Like,
Hey, I've been told by someone who I trust that a 600i is actually pretty good at doing EFTs. So
yeah,
um, you know,
yeah. Well, and so the other side of this is that they are wiping in 3.18. So
ELTs.
like realistically, this is a very temporary situation, which kind of makes it even worse that they backtracked and it was like just let them have the money. Like, what are they gonna do with it?
Oh yeah, I mean, but they're also they're reversing the reverse.
Yeah,
And they're giving everybody a million alpha UEC, and I guess that's not really a constant consolation for people like you who didn't spend it.
yeah,
But a million is still fairly okay. Like
yeah.
it's enough to kind of get you going in certain ways. Certain like if you have a fairly terrible sort of starter ship, then it's enough to buy a decent starter ship. Like for example, the Avenger Titan is a
Hmm.
great starter ship. Like it allows you to do all sorts of things, and it looks pretty good at while doing it too. So,
Yes.
um, but with just a little bit more, you can get like say an Arrow or um, a Gladius, and Gladius is like although it doesn't do as much in various different ways, like its fighting capacity and capability when doing bounties and that kind of stuff is like way higher than the Titan.
Hmm.
But yeah, do with the money what you will.
Yes.
I have been purchasing a lot of stuff to do, um, things with things on Orison with. but that's
Yes.
just me.
So, with the 3.17.2 release, a number of things have been added to the game,
Hmm.
or at least changed, or like content additions, and
Yeah.
major underlying systems have been changed. So, uh, the first major thing that has changed with 3.17.2 is the server capacity has changed from 50 to 100 players. Um, and this is dependent on some
It
of the
seems to be,
servers. Some of them have less, some of them have more. Uh,
it's kind of
they seem to
dynamic at the
still be
moment.
playing
Yeah.
with this, depending on like some of the servers being more stable than others.
It's also relating to some degree with the events that are occurring. So if they have an
Yes.
active, like say for example, if they have an active Siege of Orison, I think it drops down to sort of like 75 to 80 or so, or like that kind of thing. I think there's, I don't know if today is today. I think today might be Jumptown, and
It
then
might be.
tomorrow is Siege of Orison. I'm
Yeah.
not entirely certain. I need to double check that. But yeah, like, you know, Jumptown obviously is less, you know, resource intensive for the server, so I think they increase that.
Mhm.
Yes, it's Jumptown. Jumptown 2.0. But yeah, so the the cap isn't hard cap; it fluctuates, which is interesting because that also means that there is a degree of flexibility there, which is always good.
Mhm. And we
Um,
have seen the system work with up to 120 players, even
I,
120 players in one ship.
yeah,
That said,
which is
like
crazy.
it working and it working really well are two different things. So like them getting their netcode down to make that happen at a more spectacular level
Yeah,
is going to be interesting to see. But it is really good. It is a really good sign for them to be doing that test off the cuff and going, "Hey, this is going so well that we can just change the server sizes."
yeah,
Like,
and the thing is, like, the nice thing about, like, you know, having a show about multiple different MMOs is we get to experience in different MMOs what server meshing may actually end up being. And as much as as much as I respect Morphologist, uh, about, you know, all the things that he kind of said. Like, I was listening to a kind of a roundtable from uh,
Space Tomato.
what's this? Yeah, yeah,
Yep, saw that one today.
and
That was a good
yeah,
one.
yeah, and it was actually a really good one. But I do have to kind of like point out um, to Morphologist about you know, I understand and I get that he kind of thinks that, you know, even if you have server meshing, the server player count won't increase, you know, beyond 100, 120. We've seen in New World, and you can see it in New World if you play New World yourself and you go on a world tour, that server meshing occurs, and it can be very, you know, the server sizes and the locations that the server is that servers are dealing with can go very, very small,
Yes,
because
the
there's various
the dynamic
instances.
process of determining server boundaries or node boundaries.
Yeah,
In New World, it's very visible in World Tours where you have or like several hundred people in one location at one time.
yeah,
You'll see even across one fight by stepping 15 feet in one direction, you'll pop onto another node and you'll see a bunch more people. It's not that they're
yeah,
not rendering; it's that the server's not showing them to you.
exactly.
Um, yeah.
they're not cross talking between those servers to showcase everything that's there, because that would be a frankly ridiculous amount of data going between all of those different servers. You know, in that kind of
And it's
sense,
really
they've
like
clustered and they've
it's
made
really
sure
kind of cool to see because basically what's
it is
happening
really cool to
is you
see.
see this group of several hundred people making it beeline through all of these elite areas, and the server is following them geographically and developing a zone to keep them or parts of them on multiple different on a couple different nodes, while also blowing up other areas that have much less population that they can deal with all of the calculations in that larger area because there's obviously not a lot going on there,
Yeah,
while focusing resources where it's needed. It's what New World or it's what Star Citizen is aiming to do. Star Citizen has a bunch more complexity added to it. So like
Yeah,
moving
that is true.
characters between like New World's way of doing it, moving characters between nodes is so much easier than
But
moving all of the characters, every piece of gear that's on them, every piece of gear that's on the ship, every piece of inventory that's on the ship that might not be systematically planted. So like if you place a Pico on your dashboard, like when you or a whale on your dashboard, like that's a thing you can do. It has
yeah,
to transfer all of that from node to node
yeah,
in a way that doesn't lose anything,
yeah.
which adds so much more complexity.
But what I was like, trying to get at with morphologists sort of like comment about like how the server size isn't going to increase because even with dynamic server meshing, um, you still have that situation where you could have the entire server in one spot. Well, the issue there is that, we have player collision. Not every single player
Mm-hmm.
will be in one single spot kind of thing. It's not going to be possible.
Mm-hmm. And you can create
In Star
artificial
Citizen.
systems that prevent that as well. So
Yeah,
like
yeah, that's
things like
true. But
Siege
like,
of
but what
Orison,
I'm
you can prevent more people being added to the zone by stopping shuttles from dropping new players off until
Yeah,
people leave.
but it's very much a kind of like a sort of a what if scenario, right? The thing that I think morphologist is missing is that ability to have experienced what dynamic server meshing actually looks like in reality, right? Well, not reality, but like seeing it actually function on a in to scale on an actual game.
Mhm.
And in that kind of sense, like you will get that very location based sort of server meshing that will divide players up and keep the server running, that kind of thing, which will mean that you will not you will be able to increase the server cap,
Yes.
the entire
Yes.
sort of server cap as such. um
So knowing
um
that we can fit 120 people in one ship and the server still
yeah,
run means that the
exactly.
server was able to do not necessarily dynamically because it's not set for dynamic yet,
No.
but statically be able to identify those 120 people they were in quantum too
Yeah,
in the 890. So it was
they were watching.
actually quite
Yeah,
impressive to see.
they were traveling. Yeah.
Um, so it was able to handle that. So what would actually happen in a dynamic system is that the server would collapse uh, one node to be basically the
Like,
platform that they're on. So
yeah,
like on the
and
Siege of
then
Orison, that first set of platforms would be one area. Then another node would handle the next area. Then another node would handle the next area. Or
they'll
less.
change it so it's not just one platform, but it will be, that like that first mezzanine floor of that platform would be one server, and then the next mezzanine floor will be another server.
Mhm.
Or even it depends on how they want to implement it. They may even implement it in
Yeah.
a very geographically based, so you could have like 4 or 5 or 6 different servers that like break up that one platform or one mezzanine kind of like
Mhm.
floor into multiple servers.
Yep.
Like so it's there's a lot of flexibility in it.
Mhm.
And I
And
think
from there,
morphologists didn't
like
really
you can have
understand
other
how
people
much.
outside on other nodes doing other things. So like you could
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
600 person server if you have enough nodes to deal with that. Like
And
and people
remember,
are
and
spread out. That said, if you get 600 people in one spot, like if 600 people all try and stand in the commons in Microtech, you're going to have some issues. You know, like the code's not there for that. But in a dynamic system, what it would then start to do is it would take room by room or geographic location by geographic location, being able to identify, okay, hey,
break it up.
I can deal with 120 people. So this first
I
room
can
of the
yeah,
commons has 120 people in it. Anybody
yeah,
that
and I can
transfers in and out of that room will move to a different node handled
yeah.
by another thread on the processor, basically.
And it will know which node to talk to when transferring,
Mhm.
people to and from those nodes as they transition from those
Yeah.
geographic locations as well. So like that's
Mhm.
how that functions. And remember, like the engine that they are using is a heavily modified version of what sort of essentially is an off branch kind of shoot of what uh, New World is using. Like
Mhm.
it's kind of lumberyard esque. So it's not like we're comparing apples to like fireworks.
Yeah.
It's we're comparing very similar things to each other.
Yep. So this is of course a huge change to the game. Adding more players brings it more in line with the End Division. The End Division being an MMO. Obviously, MMO means you gotta have a lot of people. This also means you're gonna have more systems, and you're gonna have to have incentives to spread out and all of that, which is gonna
Hmm.
come the more they work on other external systems. So and of course, that is reliant on the changes that we're going to be seeing in coming patches for systems like Pyro, jump points, server meshing, dynamic server meshing, to be able to uh, spread out those resources and connect all of those different systems with the node ability to move and transfer that information from um, from location to location. So
Yeah,
um, so yeah, that is a huge update. Um, is that server capacity change? From
yeah.
there, derelict reclaimers version 1. These are
Actually,
really cool.
I can if I can make one little comment about the change in server thing.
Go for
Other
it.
that's got nothing to do with server meshing, and I think a lot of people forget about like the when you increase the amount of players, you increase the possibility and the chance of players meeting and interacting. And so, a change to the player cap may not seem, in itself significant,
Hmm.
but it is hugely significant because it exponentially increases the amount of opportunity that you get to interact with other people.
Hmm.
Yeah, just
A
wanted to put
lot
that
more
in.
opportunities for piracy. A lot more opportunities for just running into people in the wild. Um,
Yeah,
it also means that there's going to be a competition for resources. So when it comes down to these derelict reclaimers or derelict colonial outposts, like you know, there's going to be more people looking to go to those.
well, yeah, you
And
know those.
the same amount plus more people means less to go around.
It's like when we went to one of those derelict kind of like wreck sites, right?
Mhm.
And we were there for what, like, because this was before the actual player cap increased. We were there for what, like a few minutes,
Mhm.
and then, or no, probably less than a minute or so, and some guy in a yeah, just came and landed,
Yeah,
and we
some guy
thought
in a
we were,
Vanguard just was like, "Oh,
yeah,
this is
yeah,
mine now," and it was
yeah,
like, "Oh, your ship
and
is mine now."
yeah, we just left with his ship because he left his ship unlocked.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. Like, the more opportunities that occurs, the more interesting scenarios you get, right?
Mhm.
So it may seem like an innocuous sort of change, but in actual fact, it has a you know very deep and meaningful impact on just content and experience in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's move on.
Uh,
Sorry,
so
labored on to
so
this
the
point
derelict
quite
reclaimers have
enough.
been added. Derelict colonial outposts have been added. They added the Snake Pit racetrack.
Hmm.
Um, they have added AI planetary navigation and AI landing improvements. This is designed so that in instances where adding AI via spawn closets just isn't kind of an organic way of doing things, being
Yeah.
able to land a ship with AI on it, offload those characters onto the plane of battle, and fly the ship away without running into things like light posts and other obstacles. Uh, these are huge improvements that are great to see. Uh,
Yeah, I've experienced the wrecked reclaimers. You get the situation when you're going to basically neutralize somebody and he's at a wreck site. And typically, if it says he's at a wreck site, it's probably going to be one of those derelict reclaimers. but I was I didn't experience the sort of like the dropship kind of thing happening, but I think that was probably down to me deciding that because I had a suppressed P4 that I was going to ghost basically everybody on the site. So yeah, that was probably something that I inadvertently missed my opportunity to experience out of the unfortunate kind of the unfortunate sort of choices that I decided to make on that in that front.
So let's see. From there, they've added the illegal collect and delivery missions. So these aren't the first ones that they've added, but these are the first ones that have been added that are also introduced with the reputation system for the pirate factions, which is important.
Yeah.
They've added additional mission markers. They've added a new vehicle, the Anvil Centurion, which is kind of this anti-aircraft ground vehicle, which is very powerful. By all accounts, it is not something you want to run into, and may give Jumptown a fighting chance, other than against the A2, which seemingly nothing seems to beat. In terms of protecting, or destroying all of Jumptown, the A2 definitely wins that fight. They also added a new lootable item, the Anvil, the Grey Cat Errol backpack. They added new armor to the shops and lootable containers. The RSS Specialist, heavy armor and its variants were also added.
They didn't add much like new armor and new kind of stuff to purchase in Orison though. Like that was thin on the fucking ground. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Just saying.
It's really inconvenient to run a new event on Orison and not also give a weapons supplier on Orison some other options than the shotgun and a pistol.
And pistol, yeah.
And that's it. Those are your only options. Good luck. Go to another planet to find other guns.
I imported knives and size 2 suppressors, basically. So I ended up essentially knifing somebody, grabbing the gun, putting the suppressor on, and then carrying on from there. Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah.
So
okay, some more stuff. The Rest Stop Hangar editions have been added. Additional Stanton Lagrange points have been added. Grim Hex Hospital expansion is now a thing for those, multi-ship pirates that all needed to respawn at the same time and kept getting error messages when you couldn't respawn because there were too many people in hospital beds. Your problem is now solved. They've improved the NPC face randomization, so you now run into NPCs with different faces and not constantly seeing the same thing over and over again. The Combat Service Beacons V2 has now been launched. The Food and Drink Quality of Life Purchasing Update has now been launched, and you can now put inventory directly into your bag, which is very good. The Shopping Kiosk Quality of Life updates have been added. The Price of Freedom mission updates have been added. There are various vehicle updates, including changes to the tank. I can't remember what the actual name of the tank is. The Nova tank.
I definitely haven't purchased, most of the ground vehicles.
Yeah. So the Nova tank got a nice pass over, and it got a lot more damage, and it got a lot more armor. So that's kind of nice. Player networking update, which seems to have resolved much of the stuttering issues, which has made a lot of the ground flying, low flyer community pretty happy. The AI networking improvements and what can only be referred to as a shitload of bug fixes and crash fixes for the server have been added to the game as well. That all happened in 3.17.2. Now, here's where we get to start talking about what's going to happen. 3.18, they just released the roadmap roundup for August. and it includes, as I stated to McLeod in our internal communications earlier today, more content than EVE Online has released in the last 2 years. And so 3.18. This is not a full list of everything that is going into 3.18. This is just the stuff that they have added to that list.
Yeah, this is the initial thing.
So the Daymar crash site, a derelict settlement on Daymar using parts of the Star Runner and 600i, as well as some HABs adapted to the biome to create a point of interest with some activity, puzzle, traversal, hostile AI type missions, and of course rewards for completion. They've added new rivers across Stanton, setting up biome-specific objects rule sets. If you watched Star Citizen Live, there was a really cool video that had kind of the river tool being explained and how it actually kind of automatically identified where rivers were best purposed, and identifying rule sets for kind of good places to put them.
It was actually really, really interesting how they developed the sort of like the almost or like an automatic process of being able to put down rivers and make it sort of seem quite natural, right?
Yep. But also, and that of course is needed when they're going to expand out to what is potentially going to be 100 systems.
Exactly. You need
you can't do everything by hand.
Exactly.
Stuff's got to be automatic at some point. So they've also added sand cave archetypes. They've established a visual language, creation pipeline, and quality standard for the new sand cave archetype. With this release, cave networks using this archetype will be placed throughout the Stanton system. They've also announced an Arena Commander Classic Race Mode overhaul. For those of us that have been in the game long enough to remember when that was the only mode you could play, I'm always looking forward to this mode because like it just brings me back to the first days that that I played the game.
And they're putting Snake Pit into it as well.
Yep. So a complete overhaul of all systems and maps in the Arena Commander's Classic Race mode. If improvements include a complete refactor of the checkpoint entity and race manager system, improvements to scoring, and a complete rework of all 3 New Horizon Speedway maps, as well as a new map, the Snake Pit, which is why they of course added that into the normal version of the game, so you can kind of tool around there or run your own events. Sandbox prison activities. For those that have spent a lot of time in prison, myself among them, expansion of prison gameplay.
Whether it was warranted or not.
Yeah. Most of the time, I don't deserve to be in prison. Like not just like the I didn't do it. Like just the like a bug caused this to happen. I'm in prison now.
The Shaggy defense.
Yeah, it wasn't me. So the expansion of prison gameplay with a new suite of missions, sandbox activities that are designed to give inmates more opportunities to earn merits or to aid in their escape from prison. So more ways to potentially break out of prison. This comes on the heels of also adding security post Korea at reactivation. For those that are unfamiliar, security post Korea traditionally does not have NPCs in it. However, this will change. Security post Korea will be taking a more central role in Stanton security. Crusader Security have moved in a full-time staff and have begun storing confiscated contraband aboard. The station will be off limits to all citizens unless given prior authorization, which means very little opportunity to actually get in there, and you can't just hang out. Can't just hang out there anymore, like you used to be able to do, just hunting people that were trying to clear their crime stats. It also means that there was a good benefit of being there, because if they're added contraband shit there, there's going to be some worthwhile shit to steal. So that's going to be some more potential nice gameplay there. New missions specific to Orison. They're adding Bounty, Assassinate, and Clear All, and other missions to take place on the platforms created for Siege of Orison. This will also happen on
Oh, that's
additional
good.
platforms that they'll spawn in around the planet to give
Yeah.
kind of a more variety around things.
Well, I think it's also to sort of like, normalize like those missions on any and every single,
Mhm.
uh, every single planet. Because
Yes.
like obviously you have those missions, when you're at ArcCorp, whether you're at um, sort of say for example Hurston or whatever, like, but like it's just you get to Crusader and they're just not there. You have to go and do it on the moons or whatever. But like it's nice to
Mhm.
actually. It would be nice to have it in Orison in some way, shape, or form. It's just I'm probably uh I'm probably thinking about it. In actual fact, I'm there like concerned about the amount of time that I'm going to spend and the amount of alpha UEC I'm going to spend in hydrogen fuel burning in and out of that fucking atmosphere again. So I don't know. I think you're going to have to use a fairly fast ship on that one. Uh, Drake Herald might actually be the go-to one for doing those missions.
Mhm.
I mean, it is basically a fucking huge bullet with
It's
engines.
basically a capital engine on the side on the back of a on the
Yeah,
back of a small ship.
you,
Like,
yeah, you see, it is. This is the phrase that I think when looking at that thing is like, now this is pod racing.
yeah, oh yeah. So
That's what it kind of
that's
looks like.
I think adding missions to Orison is going to be a really good experience. You know, I like overall, I think it's a solid quality of life change. At any additional content is always good. Um, you know, I think this also is going to pair well with the new interdiction scenarios. Um, so like basically, occasionally you'll drop out of quantum for what appears to be no reason sometimes, but occasionally there's something there. Um, so like these new interdiction scenarios are adding new variations and difficulty levels to interdiction scenarios that players will come across while exiting quantum traveling. They may pull you out of quantum travel in the middle of nowhere to do this. Um,
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
to comical effect. For instance, McLeod here once got pulled out and it kept him at full speed.
Well, that's the
Uh,
thing. Like, if you set full speed before you jump into quantum, like when you come out of quantum, your ship automatically goes, "Oh, okay, we're out of quantum. I need to be at full speed because that's what it was previously." And I've done that. Like, I was pulled out, I think, when from a fairly lengthy quantum travel. So I wasn't expecting it, and I came out, and it just immediately went to full speed, and rammed me into a derelict, and I blew up, which was not great, not the best of experiences.
mhm.
So you know, to each their
So,
own.
so aside from this, they're looking at adding environmental space missions, the implementation of new missions and scenarios that players will encounter as they wander around an area of space. The
Oh,
missions that appear will be based on the probability volumes that the player is currently in. For those that don't understand what probability volumes are, I would highly suggest looking at the quantum AI system and
yeah,
just
it's
watching
a
that
very
video.
it's a very
Um,
dynamic system that bases as to whether you're in a location that might actually have some
yes,
activity going on.
yes.
Yeah,
Which NPCs are most likely to be there? What's the likelihood of them being there, and
and then
the
and then the
likelihood of
classic
certain events happening based on
and
other
then
events happening in the system.
yeah, and then the classic like D&D kind of dice roll as to whether you're going to get a random encounter or not.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then finally, salvage and hull stripping. And in this regard, like it's basically being updated to include hull stripping aboard the Aegis Reclaimer,
Yes.
um,
So the Reclaimer is
using
finally
its
going to
salvage
get some
arrows.
gameplay.
Yeah, at long last.
Yeah, it won't be the main grapple arm, but it will be the side turrets that actually get the gameplay.
Yeah, the main
They're
grapple
of
arm is
course
basically,
eventually going to add that, but yeah,
yeah, the main grapple arm is essentially to facilitate the crunching, or of like the superstructure, as it were.
yep,
But that's still, very much in development. But yeah.
yes. So all told, that's a lot of stuff. That is actually a lot of stuff.
Mm,
As we've been talking, the PU monthly report has been released as well. Um,
that's persistent universe for the
yes,
likes of me and you.
and this is referring back to all of the things that have changed in July. So this is the July PU monthly report with Alpha 3.17.2. It is a pretty extensive list of changes. We're not going to go into it today because it is basically it's repeating much of what we've already talked about in the past few episodes and what's happened over the last month of development, which we keep very up to date on the show. So if you are interested in hearing more about that, the link to that report is in chat right now. Um, and
I,
yeah,
I did I did think I do think that it was particularly brave of CIG to be leading the PU monthly report with AI, all
yeah,
things considered. You know,
yeah,
like I'm not, I don't want to diminish what Siege of Orison is, at least at this particular point in time, but the AI being used in the Siege of Orison leave a lot to be desired. The event has been interesting, was fun in a variety of different ways, not in terms of the engagement of like the difficulty of fighting whatever's on the platforms, or the kind of like the scenarios and situations that are presented to you. Like, I think the most exciting situation that is presented to you is basically doing a hot drop onto the admin center, while being while like basically face tanking a whole bunch of AA in a Hercules A2. Well, I think that's probably the most exhilarating part of the whole experience, but like everything else is fairly mundane and fairly easy. But I don't think that was the point. I think the point of it was to showcase, or at least experiment with, a larger, more sort of more sprawling PvE event as such. Um, but when it comes to the AI, like, oof, yeah, there's a lot of work to be done on the AI. But we've seen indications of like CRG working on the AI. It's just not for the persistent universe yet. Anyway, there's been work on the AI for Squadron 42, but I feel like that AI is going to eventually be ported over to the persistent universe in various different ways. Um, it's just at the moment we've got a really terrible AI that is very, very slow. And to be honest, the only challenge when it comes to the Siege of Orison in terms of AI is kind of just the volume and the odd places that sometimes you'll have AI get to that you don't expect, and then you end up randomly getting either shot at really obscure and acute angles, or you end up you know ducking behind cover that actually doesn't end up being cover for some reason, for random reasons. And yeah, that's been my main, like, that's been those have been like my main bugbears when it comes to actually doing the Siege of Orison events as such. But I just thought it was really uh somewhat brave to start the PU monthly report with the AI section.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so with that, that kind of wraps up all we've got for Star Citizen for the night. Um,
Yeah.
And of course, those being the 3 games we cover, that also means, that's all we've got. So again, I want to thank people for showing up. Thank you for people keeping up with the conversation. We love seeing you guys' comments. We do, as you guys have seen, we do riff off those comments to help develop content that is interesting to you, and to keep you engaged in the conversation. As this is a live talk show, it is very much kind of a fun thing for us, and I hope it's fun for you guys. So if you want to continue the discussion, we normally hang out in our Discord post show. On top of that, we encourage you guys to hit the follow button. We do stream every Wednesday, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern time. We start our pre-show at 7 p.m. Our normal show actually starts. The pre-show is kind of us just having fun with you guys, and then the actual show is more the planned event, and coverage of the news of the games. So yeah. With that, thank you guys, and as we always love to say, we'll see you in the new world.